Chapter 682. Chapter 683. You are awesome. Why did he go to Hangzhou without anyone knowing? Because Qin Sheng's purpose of going to Hangzhou this time was very clear, which was to attack Third Master Wu's base camp, make him busy with internal and external troubles, and then he would suffer a crushing defeat. Therefore, Third Master Wu must not know. With his years of experience in Jianghu, Third Master Wu would naturally guess Qin Sheng's purpose. If he was prepared at that time, Qin Sheng's efforts would be in vain. Chang Baji's strategy was the most feasible and effective one at present, and it was also the routine that Qin Sheng was good at. The three of them discussed some specific steps in detail in the office, and finally put all of them on paper to ensure that the next action would not be disrupted, especially the problem of everyone's personal safety. Among the people that Qin Sheng was worried about, Hao Lei and Han Bing in the hospital were protected by several bodyguards. Moreover, it was a special care floor, which was difficult for ordinary people to enter. Moreover, Qin Sheng really did not believe that they dared to treat Shanghai as Hong Kong in the movies. Qin Sheng also did not worry about Qing Er. Jiang Xianbang was fine, and he could use his previous resources. Therefore, the bodyguards of the Jiang family went back to the old foreign-style house to protect Qing Er. Because of what happened last time, Jiang Xianbang was very worried about Qing Er's safety. As for the Zhu family, Qin Sheng was not worried at all. They dared not do anything to the Zhu family, even if they were 100 times more courageous. Not to mention the influence of his uncle, they dared not to challenge the power of his youngest uncle in this city, which was tantamount to seeking death. Therefore, in the end, Lin Su could only protect her. Qin Sheng asked Chang Baji to send more people to protect Lin Su. He did not want to see the situation that he was most worried about to happen. After Chang Baji and Bao Fan left, Qin Sheng went to the Park Hyatt Hotel upstairs at noon. This afternoon, Uncle Lin and Annie Wang would go back to Xin. Originally, Qin Sheng would go back to Xin with them this time, but now Qin Sheng really did not have so much energy because of the trouble in Shanghai. Moreover, after Lin Su and Annie Wang went back, Qin Sheng did not need to worry about their safety in Shanghai, which also saved a lot of trouble. As for the remaining things in Xi'an, Qin Sheng had asked Lu Changxi to help him. It was nothing more than helping the Lin family get the compensation promised by the two families and the price they should pay. Qin Sheng had already discussed all these. At that time, Lu Changxi only needed to do it. Moreover, with Lu Changxi's help, there would not be any trouble, and Uncle Lin would not have to worry about it. Qin Sheng could also be completely at ease. Lunch was at the Park Hyatt Hotel Century 100 restaurant. The restaurant was located on the 91st floor of the Park Hyatt Hotel, overlooking the entirety of Shanghai. Qin Sheng had asked Yin Pan to book a table in advance. After all, there were only 4 of them, so they did not choose a private room. Instead, they chose a brighter table by the window. After ordering, Qin Sheng said somewhat embarrassedly, "Uncle Lin, Annie Wang, I've been too busy recently. I didn't have time to go out with you. I even let Uncle Lin help me a lot. I really feel a little guilty." Lin Su was on her way. In fact, it was not very far from here. It was just a 10-minute drive. However, she was delayed by something there. Wang Li was more and more satisfied with Qin Sheng now. It was the most correct choice to adopt Qin Sheng at that time. This son really gave them a backbone for the rest of their lives. It seemed that he was not afraid of any storm. Therefore, kindness in this world would definitely be treated kindly. God was not blind. It was not a bad thing to be kind. Sheng Er, we all know you're busy now. You don't have to say so much. It's our fault that we can't help you too much. But no matter what, when we're not by your side, you have to take care of yourself, Wang Li said with concern. Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. Auntie, don't worry. I'll take care of myself. I still have Lin Su. You don't have to worry. At this time, Xin interrupted and asked, "Brother, why hasn't sister come yet? I feel that you've been very busy recently. I don't know what you're busy with." Qin Sheng said impatiently, "You're still in the ivory tower. What do you know? You'll know when you start working in the future." Lin, she said thoughtfully, "Sheng Er, I think things in the company are on the right track. I'm not worried about this. I guess your father also has a backup plan. Now I'm worried about you and Lin Su. Where are you going to get married?" And when are you going to bring Lin Su to meet your father? This matter has to be settled as soon as possible so that we can rest assured. There were some things that Lin she did not say. He only discussed with Wang Li whether the Qin family would be satisfied with Lin Su. After all, the Qin family was a big family in Siju City. They might want to find a daughter-in-law who matched their family background. Although Lin Su's family was not bad in Zhejiang, it definitely could not be compared with those families in Beijing who were on good terms with the Qin family. This was also what Lin she was most worried about. In terms of business, Qin Sheng did not need anyone to worry about him now. The huge business empire of the Qin family was only waiting for Qin Sheng to inherit. Therefore, they were definitely worried about Qin Sheng's marriage. Of course, Qin Sheng understood. He smiled and said, "Uncle Lin, Annie Wang, don't worry. When things in Shanghai are over, I'll bring Lin Su back to Beijing to meet the old man. Moreover, the old man is quite busy these days. However, my sister and small Annie have already met Lin Su, and they are quite satisfied with her. Moreover, I'll bring her to meet my grandmother tomorrow. I think she will also be very satisfied." Lin Shi and Wang Li did not know about what was going on with Qin Sheng's grandmother. In fact, not many people knew about it. Only those old people in Beijing knew about it. Even Third Master Wu did not know about it, because the Yin family did not tell him about it. If Third Master Wu knew about it, he would definitely regret it, because he wanted to go back to the Bund. However, the tycoon who was in charge of the Bund now was Qin Sheng's uncle. Therefore, this was the case of information asymmetry. Lin she suddenly understood and said, "Hey, if you didn't mention it, we would have almost forgotten about it. Logically speaking, we should visit your grandmother." Qin Sheng smiled and explained, "Uncle Lin, you don't have to blame yourself. Actually, my grandmother has always wanted to meet you. However, she has not been in good health recently and has been under observation in the hospital. She was only discharged yesterday. Therefore, we can only wait for the next time." Lin she nodded and said, "Since the old lady is not in good health, let's wait for the next time." At this time, the waiters started to serve the dishes. Lin Su finally arrived. They stopped talking about other things and casually chatted about family affairs. Lin Shi and Wang Li already knew that Lin Su's biological mother had passed away. Therefore, they smiled and said that if they wanted to have 2 more children in the future, they would take care of the children for them at that time. Since Qin Sheng's mother had passed away long ago, Qin Sheng's father naturally did not have time to care about these things. Lin Su subconsciously blushed. She really did not think about this matter. However, Qin Sheng had said before that he wanted a pair of children. If both children could be good, Lin Su thought that it was quite good. Then she would definitely be a hot mother that everyone would envy. After lunch, Qin Sheng and Lin Su personally sent Uncle Lin and Annie Wang to the airport. No matter how busy they were, they still had this bit of time. Compared to these most important people, other things could be insignificant. On the way back to the city, Lin Su drove back to the company alone. Qin Sheng first had to send Xian back to school. On the way back to the city, he reminded Xian, during this period of time, stay at school. Don't go out alone if there is nothing important. If there is anything, call me first. If you can't get through to my phone, call your Uncle Chong, understand? Naturally, Qin Sheng was worried that someone would lay a hand on Xian. Therefore, he would definitely send someone to protect Xian in secret. This was a foolproof plan. Xian did not think much about it. As long as Qin Sheng said it, she would do it because she knew that her brother's identity was different now. After sending Xian, Qin Sheng returned to the company. When it was almost time to get off work, Fang Fei, who was now known by everyone in the company, came again. Qin Sheng instantly felt a headache, but no matter what, he still had to deal with it. "Brother Qin Sheng, where are we going tonight?" Fang Fei said very ambiguously. Her tone seemed to be flirting with her old lover. Qin Sheng braced himself and stood up, but he was muttering in his heart, "Old fox, I will let you jump around for half a day. I will see how you cry tomorrow." "Oh, my sister, you can't help it anymore. Don't worry, I've already arranged for tonight. This is a famous Michelin restaurant in Shanghai." Qin Sheng deliberately cooperated with Fang Fei and said. At this time, Qin Sheng had already walked in front of Fang Fei. There was no one else in the office, and Yin Pan did not come in rashly. Therefore, no one knew how Qin Sheng acted. As long as Fang Fei did not go too far, Qin Sheng could cooperate. When Fang Fei heard that it was a Michelin 3-star restaurant, she was very happy. Which beauty did not like good food and beautiful scenery? Therefore, Fang Fei smiled and said, "Brother, then I have to go home and dress up first. Otherwise, it will be bad if I embarrass you." Qin Sheng patted Fang Fei's very elastic butt and said with a smile, "Sister, you are very beautiful like this. Who dares to say that you are embarrassing? This can't do. I have to at least change clothes. This set of clothes is too professional, not good." Fang Fei frowned slightly and said coquettishly, but her eyes were staring straight at Qin Sheng, and she was even trying hard to release electricity. Qin Sheng pinched Fang Fei's original chin and said happily, "Okay, I will listen to you. When the time comes, I will go first and wait for you." Fang Fei subconsciously reached out her hand and touched Qin Sheng's chest. Her eyes instantly lit up. Only then did she realize that Qin Sheng's muscles were very developed. She could not help but feel a little amorous. She just did not know how Qin Sheng's skills in bed were. Would it be a silver spear that looked good but was useless? It should not be. After all, Qin Sheng was still so young. Therefore, Fang Fei's eyes were blurred with desire and said, "Then tonight, I will definitely serve you well and let you forget home." After saying that, Fang Fei suddenly pulled Qin Sheng in her arms and left a light kiss on Qin Sheng's cheek. Then, she gave him a coquettish look and left quietly. Qin Sheng could not escape in the end. He smiled helplessly and looked at Fang Fei's back as she left and muttered, "You are good." Chapter 683. Start your performance tonight. Qin Sheng did not fight alone. He also invited a helper, and this helper was Xia Ding. Xia Ding, who had been a playboy for many years, was very good at dealing with women. How to make Fang Fei drink more at night. Xia Ding, a playboy who was good at pleasing women, had many ways to make Fang Fei drink more at night, so Qin Sheng had already arranged a chance encounter. Moreover, the restaurant was only the first round. The second round was a nightclub, and they would go together. This time, the assistant candidate was Zhu Jiao. This guy was similar to Xia Ding. He often hung out in nightclubs, but his private life was not bad. After all, he had his family to take care of him. If he messed around, he would be beaten up when he got back. Finally, and most importantly, it was time for Zhao Changle to take the stage. After work, Qin Sheng directly called Xia Ding and said, "Lao San, we can go now. It's up to you tonight." At this moment, Xia Ding, who had just picked up his girlfriend, said happily, "Don't worry, it's a piece of cake." This was a famous restaurant in Shanghai, which had just been selected as a Michelin restaurant this year. It mainly focused on creative dishes. Its head chef was Alvin Liang Jingluan, who was known as the cooking demon in the food industry. The restaurant was hidden at the back door of the food stall at number 5 on the Bund. Since its opening, it had been controversial. Some people said it was not delicious, and some people were even unwilling to try it, thinking that Alvin, the cooking demon, liked to mess around. However, Xia Ding felt that the taste was good. After all, the title of cooking demon was not random, so she suggested to Qin Sheng to eat here. She also happened to bring her girlfriend to try it. There was no shortage of Michelin restaurants in Shanghai, nor was there a shortage of rich people in Shanghai. Moreover, there are only a few Michelin restaurants in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai. However, there were many rich people in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai. Most of the time, these Michelin restaurants had to be booked, and they had to wait for 10 days to half a month. However, Qin Sheng had connections, so he cut the line in advance and booked 2 seats next to each other so that he could share a table and drink. Qin Sheng did not change his clothes. He directly put on his suit and went to the restaurant first. The decoration style of the restaurant was very modern and avant-garde. The color and lighting design were used in the restaurant. Although it was a little cold, it looked high-end and classy. However, Qin Sheng had been to many occasions like this, so he was not surprised at all. He just wanted to taste the craftsmanship of this kitchen devil and see if it could compare with the 2 low-key big shots in the food circle in Hermit House. Qin Sheng gestured to the waiter to order later. He chose a bottle of good vintage Bordeaux red wine and asked the waiter to sober up the wine first. After all, there was a process. About 10 minutes later, Fong Fei, who was wearing a long gray dress that showed off her figure, came in. The sound of her high heels was very rhythmic, causing many customers in the restaurant to turn their heads. Even though there were many beautiful women here, Fong Fei definitely did not belong to any woman. Regardless of other things, Qin Sheng had to admit that Fong Fei was really stunning tonight. It could be seen that in order to win him over, Fong Fei had dressed up meticulously. In the end, Fong Fei walked to the opposite side of Qin Sheng. Many men in the restaurant were envious and jealous of Qin Sheng. They only hated themselves for not being Qin Sheng. At this time, Qin Sheng had already stood up. He stretched out his hand and deliberately teased. "Excuse me, beautiful lady, can I invite you for dinner?" Fong Fei gladly received Qin Sheng's hand and said with a smile, "It's my honor." This ambiguous and warm scene seemed to have numbed Fong Fei, making her feel that Qin Sheng had been conquered by her charm. There should be no more accidents tonight, and it was only a matter of time before she won Qin Sheng over. But she definitely did not expect that this was the effect that Qin Sheng wanted. As long as he made her happy, Qin Sheng could start the next plan. So he just continued to act with her. "Sister Fong, you are really beautiful tonight, even more beautiful than usual." Anyway, praising people did not cost money. So Qin Sheng praised Fong Fei with all his might. After Fong Fei sat down, she pursed her lips and smiled slightly. "Brother, you are really good talking. But don't call me Sister Fong tonight. Call me Fei Fei, okay?" As soon as Fei Fei said this, if it were not for Qin Sheng's strong internal strength, he would really have vomited all the food he had eaten at noon. "Fei Fei, could you be more disgusting?" But no matter how disgusting it was, he had to finish the trap that he had set up with tears in his eyes. So Qin Sheng suppressed the ups and downs in his heart and nodded. "Okay, Fei Fei, tonight belongs to us." At this time, Qin Sheng could only pray in his heart, "Xia Ding, come quickly. If you don't come, I really can't stand it anymore." At this time, the waiter came over and Qin Sheng gestured for Fong Fei to order. "Fei Fei, order. This restaurant is very famous." Fong Fei refused tactfully. "I have heard of this restaurant, but I have not been here before. But I will listen to everything you say tonight. I like whatever you order." Such a disgusting dialogue. Qin Sheng was really about to vomit. It was estimated that the waiter beside him could not bear it anymore. Qin Sheng had already made up his mind that he would never come to this restaurant in the future, in case he was despised by others. The restaurant owner, the devil's chef, was probably thinking to himself, "Who did I offend? Is my food not delicious?" Under the waiter's recommendation, Qin Sheng chose the dishes for tonight. This kind of restaurant that focused on creative dishes was more exquisite. Of course, the portions were smaller. So people like Qin Sheng, who had a bigger appetite, did not like to come to this kind of place. Because he could not eat his fill, he had to change places after finishing. It was not that Qin Sheng was a rustic. He could taste it occasionally, but if he came here often, he would definitely not be able to stand it. The lights in the restaurant were darker, which was more suitable for flirting between couples. So most of the people who came here were couples. There was an atmosphere, style, and style. Those young girls who were not familiar with the affairs of the world were easily won over by those local tycoons. Qin Sheng was sacrificing his life for righteousness tonight. He pinched his nose and accepted it. After the waiter left, Qin Sheng deliberately changed the topic. "Fei Fei, you also know that my main mission in Shanghai this time is to reorganize the company. So you could try your best to help me. When I return to Beijing, I will definitely praise you in front of the old master. As for the things in the future, you know." Of course, Fong Fei understood what Qin Sheng meant. For a moment, Fong Fei had an illusion. If she really wanted to help Qin Sheng, there might be an unexpected gain. For example, if she could use a honey trap to hug Qin Sheng's thigh, she would definitely gain more than the other side. After all, Qin Sheng was the future successor of the group. However, Fong Fei quickly dispelled this idea because the other side had too much information on her. She did not dare to easily betray the other side. Otherwise, she would not even know how she died. So she could only say that she and Qin Sheng were not fated to be together. Thinking of this, Fang Fei was a little disappointed. Then she would cherish the moment of the spring night tonight. Fang Fei looked at Qin Sheng very gently and said, "Brother, don't worry. If I don't help you, will I help others? You are the successor of Master Qin and the future chairman of the group. Then you must treat me well in the future. That's for sure. How can I bear to let others have a beauty like you?" Qin Sheng echoed and said. Both sides were acting. It was just a matter of whose acting skills were better. Fang Fei smiled very happily. Being complimented and being complimented by others was a very enjoyable thing. However, Fang Fei deliberately made things difficult for Qin Sheng and said, "Then tell me honestly, between your girlfriend and me, who is prettier?" This sentence made Qin Sheng speechless. Qin Sheng must have said in his heart, "How can a purple like you be compared to my girlfriend? Don't you have any idea in your heart?" However, Qin Sheng would definitely not say that. However, he would definitely not belittle Lin Su. This was something he definitely could not do. Hence, Qin Sheng smiled and said, "How should I put it? You both have different feelings. Fei Fei, you are sexy and flirtatious. You exude a charming aura that makes people want to have you involuntarily. This is probably the feeling of all the men in the company. As for my girlfriend, she belongs to the cold and elegant type. She keeps people thousands of miles away. However, after getting along with her, she gives people the feeling of a little woman." If Qin Sheng directly said that, of course, "Fei Fei, you are the prettiest," Fang Fei would definitely not believe him. She would think that Qin Sheng was very hypocritical. However, since Qin Sheng said so, Fang Fei naturally believed him. Her trust in Qin Sheng increased a little. Fang Fei smiled and said, "Brother, you really know how to talk. I'm just telling the truth," Qin Sheng said without blushing or skipping a beat. The two flirted for a while more. Not long after, the waiter started to serve the dishes. At this time, the wine was already sober. Qin Sheng took the initiative to raise his glass and said, "It's my honor to have dinner with sister. Cheers." "Me too," Fang Fei said with a slightly red face. The two flirted and drank like this. Time passed unknowingly. However, Qin Sheng was cursing Xia Ding in his heart. "Why are you not here yet? If you don't come, I can't continue acting." Just when Qin Sheng was about to break down, Xia Ding finally arrived with his girlfriend, whom Qin Sheng had already met. Of course, Xia Ding had already told his girlfriend to pretend not to know him. Otherwise, Qin Sheng would definitely be exposed. Therefore, when Xia Ding sat at the table next to Qin Sheng deliberately glanced at Xia Ding inadvertently. Then, he frowned and stared at Xia Ding. Fang Fei was a little puzzled and said, "Brother, what's wrong?" Qin Sheng turned around and explained, "This man looks a little familiar. He seems to be my roommate in college. I haven't seen him for several years." Of course, Fang Fei did not know whether it was true or not. She did not guess at all. She smiled and said, "It can't be such a coincidence. You might have mistaken me for someone else." At this time, Xia Ding also looked at Qin Sheng very cooperatively. The two of them looked at each other like this. Qin Sheng was the first to stand up and act very surprised. "You are Xia Ding." "Qin Sheng, boss." Xia Ding also pretended to recognize Qin Sheng. Therefore, the two of them took the opportunity to hug each other and exchanged all kinds of greetings and politeness. They said things like, "I really didn't expect to meet you here," and "I was also waiting." Xia Ding's girlfriend's expression was similar to Fang Fei's. Both of them were a little surprised. Then, she smiled and looked at the two big men talking about the old days. The next scene was even simpler. Qin Sheng smiled and asked who the person next to Xia Ding was. Xia Ding very naturally explained that this was his girlfriend and then introduced each other to each other. Then, it was Xia Ding's turn to ask Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng could only bite the bullet and say that this was also his girlfriend. Then, he introduced each other to each other. When he said that this was his girlfriend, Qin Sheng silently said 100 times in his heart, "Wife, I was wrong. I was also forced to do this. I hope you can understand." Of course, this definitely cannot be known by Lin Su. However, When Fong Fei heard Qin Sheng's introduction, she was so happy that she felt like she had eaten candy. Even though she was not Qin Sheng's girlfriend, she was very satisfied with Qin Sheng's introduction. Even her eyes were a little more lively. It was difficult for old friends to meet. Under such a coincidence, naturally they sat together. This was all in the plan. When Qin Sheng poured wine for Xia Ding, he stared at him fiercely, meaning, "Why did you only come now?" Xia Ding could not explain because he was delayed by a small matter. He could only use his eyes to tell Qin Sheng, "Boss, I was wrong, but leave the rest to me." When Qin Sheng handed the wine glass to Xia Ding, he gave him a hard look, as if to say, "Let's start your performance." Chapter 684. It's your turn. At least from the current situation, everything was going according to plan, except for the late arrival of Xia Ding and his girlfriend, which caused Qin Sheng to be tortured by Fong Fei. However, after all, Xia Ding was the main force tonight. Qin Sheng was just cooperating, so it was up to Xia Ding's performance. Of course, Qin Sheng was the one paying the bill tonight, so before Xia Ding came, he had already told his girlfriend that she could try her best to make money from this rich guy. After all, Qin Sheng was much richer than Xia Ding now. How could Xia Ding miss such an opportunity? Xia Ding's girlfriend was still Qin, who was not stunning at first glance, but very beautiful. Qin Sheng had already seen her before, and this time, she did not change. Because this time, Qin also accompanied Xia Ding's parents on a trip to Europe. It seemed that the Xia family was very satisfied with this daughter-in-law, and now they were talking about marriage. After dinner, it was basically Qin Sheng and Xia Ding reminiscing about the old days. They talked about the things that happened in college. However, no matter what they talked about, Xia Ding did not stop drinking. Whenever they talked about something happy, everyone would raise their glasses together. Xia Ding's girlfriend could hold her liquor well, but she drank less. After all, she was just a guest tonight, so the others did not say anything. Fong Fei did not think much. In order to show her magnanimity in front of Qin Sheng's friends, she almost did not drop her glass, and often took the initiative to toast Xia Ding and his girlfriend. After all, she was Qin Sheng's temporary girlfriend tonight. Xia Ding was very smart. He immediately knew what Fong Fei wanted to do, so he took the initiative to provoke. "Boss, let's not go home until we are drunk. When we were in college, I couldn't drink as much as you, but today is different. Tonight, we must fight to see who can hold their liquor better." Qin Sheng pretended to be a little embarrassed, but in the end, he bit the bullet and agreed. "I will risk my life to accompany a gentleman." Boss, I like your temper. Come on, let's drink." Xia Ding laughed. After finishing this glass, Qin Sheng deliberately lowered his head and whispered in Fong Fei's ear, Fei, tonight is on you. You know, I've been too tired recently and not in a good state. Don't let this guy get me drunk." Fong Fei was indeed a good drinker. When she was in Beijing, she was a social butterfly at all kinds of drinking parties. Drinking was a common thing for her. She did not think it was a big deal at all. She replied naturally, "Brother, I am here. How can I let you suffer losses?" Under the table, one of Qin Sheng's hands was restlessly placed on Fong Fei's thigh. This was considered as a reward for Fong Fei. As long as Qin Sheng behaved more intimately with her, Fong Fei would be happier on the date. Qin Sheng had Fong Fei in his grasp. "Thank you, Fei," Qin Sheng said in an ambiguous tone. At this time, Xia Ding said, "Hey boss, don't be so lovey-dovey. Let's drink." The rhythm had been set, and it was Xia Ding's turn to perform next. Xia Ding looked at Fong Fei and sighed. "Sister Fong, how could such a beautiful woman like you be abducted by my boss? If I had met you earlier, he would definitely not be involved." Fong Fei especially enjoyed being praised. Xia Ding's words were exactly what she wanted. Fong Fei pursed her lips and smiled. "If I say that I chased after him, would you believe it?" Qin was not angry. She behaved very casually. After all, she knew that tonight was just a trap. Only Qin Sheng could make Xia Ding cooperate with him and act. She already knew about the story between Xia Ding and Qin Sheng. She also knew that Qin Sheng's status was very high. Xia Ding said with a face full of shock, "Hey, Sister Fong, then you are really amazing. You dare to love and hate. Let me toast to you. True love." since Xiaoding had said so. How could Fang Fei not drink? She even clinked her glass happily. At this time, Qin Sheng said in Fang Fei's ear, "He doesn't know my identity. Fei Fei, don't leak it. This guy likes to pretend." "I know," Fang Fei said with a somewhat blurred look. She had already made up her mind to teach Xiaoding a good lesson for Qin Sheng. The lights in the restaurant were originally a little dim. Under the aphrodisiac effect of alcohol, Fang Fei had really put herself in the position of Qin Sheng's girlfriend. Now she would listen to whatever Qin Sheng said. Moreover, being complimented by two men, which beauty would not be happy? Xiaoding had even started to give his girlfriend the cold shoulder. At this time, Xiaoding seemed to have discovered a new continent. He hurriedly said, "Hey, Sister Fang, is the watch you are wearing the Red Heart series that Baope sold last Valentine's Day? Hey, this is not cheap. I like this watch the most." Women not only like to be complimented and praised, of course, they also like to be appreciated. Women bought clothes and luxury goods, on one hand, to compete with the same sex. On the other hand, naturally, it was to let men appreciate them. How could Xiaoding, who understood women very well, not know? Fang Fei's eyes lit up. "Ah, you also know Baope series? Sister Fang, we have the same taste. I was going to buy it for my girlfriend." Xiaoding was very envious. Then he raised his glass and said, "Sister Fang, this toast to our common taste." Fang Fei raised her glass very naturally. "Others were praising you. How could you not drink it?" After drinking this glass, Xiaoding saw Fang Fei's earrings again. He said very exaggeratedly, "Oh my God, Sister Fang, this series?" This time, not only Fang Fei was very shocked, even Qin Sheng was very shocked. He almost said, "Master Xiaoding, how did you recognize these?" Even Xiaoding's girlfriend looked confused. After finishing 2 bottles of wine, the dinner was almost over. Qin Sheng prepared to leave with Fang Fei. However, Xiaoding appeared to be particularly excited and said, No, we can't just let it go tonight. Let's go to another place to continue drinking. It's rare for us to meet the boss here by chance, and we also met a bosom friend like Sister Fang. We must not go home until we're drunk." Qin Sheng did not drink much at all. Although Fang Fei was very happy, she was thinking about another thing in her heart, which was how to conquer Qin Sheng in bed later. Moreover, at this time, she was already a little tipsy. If she continued to drink, she was afraid that she would get drunk. However, Fang Fei naturally would not make a decision on her own. She was very sensible and raised her head to look at Qin Sheng, asking him what she should do. Qin Sheng hesitated for a moment before he decided, "Then let's drink for a while more. It's still early." Since Qin Sheng had already made up his mind, Fang Fei could not say anything more. The worst result was that she could not win Qin Sheng over tonight. However, since they had already developed to this stage, there would be many opportunities in the future. There was no need to be impatient. Since Qin Sheng had already agreed, he did not need to care about the rest of the things. Xiaoding pretended to make a phone call and quickly arranged the place for the second round. In fact, Qin Sheng had already arranged it. Moreover, Zhu Jiao had already been waiting for a long time with his people, waiting for Qin Sheng to go on stage. The location for the second round was at TXX, which was the TXX that Xueku and Gu Yongning had gone to before the incident last time. It was said that it was opened by a star and several investors. However, as the most popular nightclub in Shanghai now, this place was the most suitable. The driver quickly sent everyone to TXX. Qin Sheng supported Fang Fei and followed behind Xiaoding and his girlfriend. Fang Fei was almost wrapped around Qin Sheng's body. Her breath smelled like orchids, which made Qin Sheng feel very tormented. Fortunately, there were bodyguards from the Qin family to protect them. Therefore, there was no trouble along the way, and they were not taken advantage of by those who wanted to fish in troubled waters. Apart from the decoration style and the main direction, the nightclubs across the country were almost the same. Although Qin Sheng did not dislike such places, he seldom came here, with its dim lighting, ear-piercing music, and dancing crowds. Tax had been open for more than half a year. At present, Tax had become the #1 nightclub in Shanghai. The venue was the largest in Shanghai, and the atmosphere was also the best. Of course, there was also the ridiculously expensive price of the second floor. However, the lighting effects and holographic projection of tax were really amazing. Moreover, every week, there would be top 100 DJs from around the world. It was so popular that it was difficult to get a seat. Xiaoding's friend brought Qin Sheng to the super large booth on the second floor that they had booked. After they sat down, Xiaoding began to order alcohol. The alcohol that went to his head was served quickly. In such a noisy environment, it would not take long for Fang Fei to fall down. Her fate was already determined. They had just drunk a few glasses of alcohol. Zhu Jiao, who had already seen Qin Sheng coming in, immediately came over with his gang of scoundrels. Similarly, Zhu Jiao had also informed them that their target was only Fang Fei. They would not force others to drink. After seeing Qin Sheng, Zhu Jiao laughed and said, "Cousin, why are you here? You are here too. Come, have a few drinks." After hugging Zhu Jiao, Qin Sheng took the initiative to call Zhu Jiao and his friends over. Then, Qin Sheng hugged Fang Fei and explained in her ear, "This is my cousin, Zhu Jiao, my aunt's son." Regarding the matters of the Qin family, Fang Fei knew much more than many people. When Qin Sheng said that this was his aunt's son, Fang Fei had already guessed the identity of this handsome guy. Obviously, his father was the ruler of this city. Fang Fei immediately became serious. If she could get to know such a man, of course, it would be beneficial to her. Qin Sheng had already introduced Zhu Jiao. Zhu Jiao took the initiative to pick up his glass and said, "Oh, cousin-in-law, my cousin is really good at hiding things. This is the first time we have met. We must drink more." Fang Fei was overjoyed when she heard the word cousin-in-law. This woman had been completely controlled by alcohol. Zhu Jiao and Fang Fei drank 3 glasses of whiskey in a row. Of course, Qin Sheng did not drink any. After Zhu Jiao finished drinking, he introduced his friends. "What are you waiting for? Why don't you drink to my cousin-in-law? Have you ever seen such a beautiful woman?" Zhu Jiao's friends smiled and hurriedly followed him. Each of them toasted to Fang Fei. Fang Fei could not hide even if she wanted to. How could she not give Zhu Jiao face? The scene became lively in an instant. Of course, it was also chaotic. Qin Sheng's heart was as still as water, while Xiaoding was watching the fun. There should be nothing for him to do now. He could hit them when they were down later. After toasting, Zhu Jiao did not leave. Instead, he stayed with 2 friends who could drink, while the others returned to their seats. The situation after that was almost the same as what happened during dinner. Zhu Jiao took the initiative to chat with Fang Fei. Qin Sheng cooperated with him, and Xiaoding took advantage of the opportunity. Fang Fei was finally about to fall. At this moment, she was already very dizzy. However, what these men could not help but admire was that Fang Fei was really good at drinking. So many people took turns to take her down. It could be seen that if Qin Sheng acted alone, he might not be a match for her at all. The whole night's preparation was nothing more than for the last moment. At this moment, it was almost time. Qin Sheng glanced at Zhao Chang'e, who had long been hiding not far away, and directly waved his hand to signal, "It's your turn." Chapter 685. A good show. Fang Fei's identity was very special. Qin Sheng had already called his sister Qin Ran before he took action. He had repeatedly confirmed that if he did anything to Fang Fei, would there be any problems? Qin Ran's explanation was that although Fang Fei's rank in the headquarters was not very high, she was promoted by a director and her position was very stable. However, the shareholders represented by this director were now at odds with the Qin family. Didn't they send Fang Fei to Shanghai to obstruct you from doing things and monitor you at the same time? Since they've already done so, what's there to be afraid of? With his sister's words, Qin Sheng dared to take action directly. After all, once this matter was exposed, Fang Fei's reputation would definitely be damaged. Not to mention that she would not be able to stay in Shanghai. She would probably also be affected in the headquarters. There were many things that could not be blamed on Qin Sheng or Fang Fei. They could only blame themselves for standing on different sides. The shareholders wanted to mess with Qin Sheng, and Fang Fei was also willing to come to Shanghai to do this. In that case, could it be that Qin Sheng had resigned himself to adversity and let them do it? Obviously, this was impossible, because Qin Sheng not only represented himself, but also the future interests of the Qin family in Chang, and the future of the entire family. Therefore, someone had to be sacrificed, and Fang Fei became the sacrifice. When Qin Sheng and the others arrived at Tax, Zhao Changel had already arrived. He wandered on the dance floor alone, jumping around with a group of young people, venting the resentment in his heart. But what could he do? If he had not taken the risk, Qin Sheng would not have had a handle on him. If he had not had a handle on him, he would not have been used by Qin Sheng. Therefore, he could not blame others. He could only blame his own greed. A man's heart was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Most people's desires could not match their own strength. So in the end, they either blamed others or took the risk. Zhao Changel belonged to the latter. Zhao Changel was also a veteran who often hung out in nightclubs. Besides, he was more shrewd than anyone else in the world. Unfortunately, sometimes he was too shrewd, and his own cleverness would be his own downfall. When he walked over, Qin Sheng had already made eye contact with him. Zhao Changel's gloomy expression instantly blossomed into a smile, and he greeted him warmly. Chairman Qin, I didn't recognize the wrong person, did I? I really didn't expect to meet you here. Qin Sheng looked very calm. After thinking for a while, he said, "Oh, Mr. Zhao, you are here too." Of course, Xia Ding and Zhu Jiao did not know who Zhao Changel was. They looked at Qin Sheng in confusion. Qin Sheng nodded at them meaningfully. They subconsciously understood what was going on. Everything was in Qin Sheng's plan. Zhao Changel shook hands with Qin Sheng and sat down next to him. Then, he saw Fang Fei in Qin Sheng's arms. He was very surprised and said, "Oh, Miss Fang is here too." At this time, Fang Fei was already in a daze and could not recognize who the man in front of her was. After all, she was not familiar with Zhao Changel and had only met him a few times in the company. Besides, in the entire Shanghai company, Fang Fei only took him seriously. She could not be bothered with anyone else. Fang Fei, who did not recognize Zhao Changel, looked at Qin Sheng in confusion. Qin Sheng casually explained, "He's the deputy general manager of the company, Zhao Changel." Fang Fei casually said, "Oh." Obviously, she did not take Zhao Changel seriously and chose to ignore him directly. Qin Sheng pretended to be a little angry and said, "He took the initiative to come over. Why didn't you greet him?" Fang Fei really did not intend to greet him, but since Qin Sheng had already said so, she had to give him face. She had no choice but to stand up and shake his hand. "Oh, Deputy General Manager Zhao." Zhao Changel naturally knew Fang Fei. She was the hot topic of the whole company now. She was a sexy and flirtatious beauty. Just walking around the company every day was a beautiful scenery. Any man wanted to make her his own, but unfortunately, she did not look at them at all. Zhao Changel did not expect that he would have such an opportunity to get close to her. Although the price he had to pay for this opportunity was very heavy, Zhao Changel thought about it carefully. If he did not have such an opportunity, he would very likely be in jail. Therefore, on the other hand, Zhao Changel had to thank Fang Fei. In addition, he could spend the night with Fang Fei tonight. It seemed that this was not a losing deal. Although Qin Sheng had drawn a bottom line for him, once he crossed the line, he would have to bear the consequences. However, these were all enough. Therefore, Zhao Changel was very annoyed when he saw Fang Fei's arrogant look and did not look him in the eye. He cursed in his heart, "Bitch, what are you pretending for? Don't you know that all of this is just an act? I will see what you look like in bed later." However, at this moment, Zhao Changel still had to be very respectful. He politely raised his glass and said, "Chairman Qin, Miss Fang, let me give you a toast." Qin Sheng had already picked up his glass. Although Fang Fei did not want to drink anymore, she had no choice but to raise her glass and drink it in one go. At this time, Qin Sheng took the initiative to invite Zhao Changel to stay and play with him. Zhao Changel looked very frightened and quickly declined, saying that he would leave now. However, Qin Sheng insisted again and again. In the end, Zhao Changel could only sit next to Qin Sheng. Fang Fei more or less did not understand. What was Qin Sheng's status and identity? Why did he take a deputy general manager seriously? Moreover, after the company was reorganized, there might not be a position for him. Qin Sheng explained with a smile, I have to be more approachable. Otherwise, how can I get along with my colleagues? Of course, Fang Fei knew this kind of control method, but she was a little disdainful. She felt that Qin Sheng was too pretentious. They were not at the same level at all. So what if they got along well? It was just hypocrisy. Soon, Zhao Chang'e and Qin Sheng got along well. This was all Qin Sheng's idea. He continuously toasted Fang Fei a few more times. Of course, he also toasted Xia Ding and Zhu Jiao, although he was not qualified to do so. Later, Zhu Jiao and Xia Ding teamed up and made Fang Fei drink a few more glasses. Fang Fei had no choice but to drink. Although these two rich playboys met for the first time, they cooperated very well and did not give Fang Fei a chance to refuse at all. Fang Fei, who had been insisting on staying awake, finally fell down. She directly lay on the sofa and could not wake up. She could only respond in a daze. Qin Sheng said to Zhao Chang'e, who was beside him, have you arranged for your girlfriend? Yes, Chairman Qin. Don't worry, Zhao Chang'e said very nervously. Qin Sheng frowned and said, well, that's good. Someone will teach you how to do the rest of the things. After arriving at the hotel, remember to do what you should do. If you mess around, I will go back on what I promised you. Qin Sheng still had a bottom line. He only needed what he wanted and would not cross the line for the rest. It was even more impossible for him to give Fang Fei to Zhao Chang'e. That would be too easy for this guy. He did not have such luck with women. I dare not, Chairman Qin. I definitely won't mess around, Zhao Chang'e said very fearfully. However, a man's deep-rooted bad habits said in his heart. Although he could not trample on this big vixen, it was not a problem to take advantage of her. Anyway, they would not know. After arranging everything, Qin Sheng said goodbye to Zhu Jiao and Xia Ding and left tax first. Xia Ding and Zhu Jiao would leave later, in case they would be suspected or other accidents would happen. Qin Sheng had already booked a place for supper. Zhu Jiao, Xia Ding, and his girlfriend would also go there later. At that time, they would have a good chat. Qin Sheng also prepared to introduce Xia Ding to Zhu Jiao. In the future, they could hang out more. Zhu Jiao's social circle must be the top rich playboys in Shanghai. Based on the relationship between Qin Sheng and Xia Ding, if he was not in Shanghai in the future, Zhu Jiao would definitely help take care of Xia Ding in some matters. Moreover, Xia Ding was not the kind of rich playboy who only knew how to eat, drink, and have fun. Therefore, Xia Ding could also help Qin Sheng to keep an eye on Zhu Jiao, in case he caused trouble outside. Yang Daniu escorted Qin Sheng out of tax. In this kind of mixed place, the most important thing was to pay attention to safety. Yang Daniu had suffered a lot in this kind of place. After getting in the car, Yang Daniu replied, everything has been arranged. Just wait for the good news later. Qin Sheng did not think much about it. He was still very relieved, so he nodded and said, okay, let's go for supper. Not long after Qin Sheng left, Xia Ding left with his girlfriend. Then, Zhao Chang'e left with the coquettish but already unconscious Fang Fei. Zhu Jiao was the last one to leave. After Zhao Chang'e helped Fang Fei out, Yang Daniu's arranged subordinates immediately took them to the hotel that had already been opened. One was for Zhao Chang'e and Fang Fei, and the other was for Yang Daniu's subordinates. Qin Sheng did not need to worry about these things anymore. Not everything had to be done by himself. Yang Daniu, who was experienced in Jianghu, had arranged everything. Moreover, these were all the Qin family's bodyguards. Which one of them was not smart enough? He waited in the restaurant for about 20 minutes before Xia Ding and Zhu Jiao came in one after the other. Xia Ding did not bring his girlfriend with him this time. He asked the driver to send his girlfriend home first and took a taxi here himself. After all, it was a little late. Zhu Jiao's eyes lit up. Let's drink some more? Qin Sheng asked with a smile. Obviously, Xia Ding had drunk a lot, while Zhu Jiao seemed to be okay. Xia Ding said honestly, I'll drink less, or I'll throw up. After Qin Sheng raised his glass to celebrate, he said, anyway, Thank you for acting with me tonight. I'll treat you to a meal another day. Finally, I can solve this problem. Xiaoding was very confused and said, Boss, it's just a woman. Why do you have to work so hard? Qin Sheng explained with a smile, You don't understand. This woman's identity is not simple. She is a chess piece of a major shareholder of the group. She came to Shanghai to drag me down and monitor me at the same time. I can only use this method to drive her away. Otherwise, as long as she stays in Shanghai for one more day, things will not go smoothly on my side. Zhu Jiao said thoughtfully, I see. If I knew this earlier, I would have made her drink more. Indeed, there are not many good, beautiful women. Then why do you still flirt with girls every day? Qin Sheng scolded angrily. Zhu Jiao laughed and did not refute Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng filled up his glass again. This time, he said very seriously, Just now you already know each other, but I did not introduce you in detail. Now let me introduce you seriously. Xiaoding is my college roommate and also my best brother in college. Jiao is my cousin and my aunt's son. You two have similar characters and temperaments. You can contact each other more in the future. I think you can definitely have a good chat. Zhu Jiao laughed and said, Cousin, you don't need to say this. When we were in the bar just now, I knew that Brother Xia and I must be kindred spirits. Kindred spirits, birds of a feather flock together, Xiaoding replied with a smile. The two of them had a good chat in the bar just now, but they really opened up at this time. Qin Sheng did not expect that their relationship would be so tense so fast. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Then let's have another drink. After finishing the supper, it was already past 2 o'clock. So they just separated and agreed to meet again later, but they did not drink much. Qin Sheng went directly back to Lu Jiazui apartment. After a night of tossing and turning, he was a little tired. After Yang Daniu sent Qin Sheng there, he personally went to watch that thing in case of any accidents. There would definitely be a good show tomorrow morning. Chapter 686. What do you think? What do you think? When Qin Sheng returned home, smelling of alcohol, Lin Su, who had been busy for a whole day, had already fallen asleep. After taking a shower, Qin Sheng went to bed carefully. Even so, he still woke Lin Su up. Lin Su hugged Qin Sheng in a daze and said, You're back. Lin Su trusted Qin Sheng completely. Moreover, she also knew that Qin Sheng had a lot of things to deal with recently. There were too many things for him to worry about. He was no longer the Qin Sheng in the past, so Lin Su did not have any complaints. Because except for special reasons, Qin Sheng would come back no matter how busy he was. Sorry, I woke you up, Qin Sheng said with some embarrassment. The most important thing for Lin Su today was to let her bestie group accompany her to choose what to wear to meet the old lady tomorrow. This big thing was finally settled. Lin Su originally wanted to wait for Qin Sheng to come back and ask him if it was suitable for her to wear that kind of clothes. Unfortunately, Qin Sheng told her that he had something to do tonight and would come back late. Lin Su was very uneasy about the meeting tomorrow. That was why she couldn't sleep well tonight. Lin Su asked casually, What time are we going to Grandma's tomorrow? Qin Sheng had already talked to Grandma about this matter. At that time, Small Aunt would also go there to help Lin Su. After all, Lin Su and Small Aunt were already familiar with each other, so she would not be so restrained at that time. At 3 in the afternoon, I'll go to the company to pick you up, then we'll go together, Qin Sheng replied softly. Lin Su murmured like a lazy cat. She was about to get into Qin Sheng's arms to sleep, but then she thought of something and asked again, Then what do we need to buy? Qin Sheng rubbed Lin Su's back and said with a smile, You don't have to do anything. Grandma has told us to just buy some fruits, just like last time. In fact, Lin Su had prepared a few things, which were also suitable for the elderly. But she still needed to ask for Qin Sheng's opinion on this kind of thing. Since Qin Sheng had said so, Lin Su did not say anything else. This time, Lin Su did not speak anymore. She did not know whether it was because Qin Sheng's return made her feel more at ease, or because she finally felt relieved about this matter. Not long after, she fell asleep. In a room of a 5-star hotel in Shanghai, a special photo shoot was in progress. The male and female protagonists were naked and posed in countless sexy poses that could make people vomit blood. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely be conquered by the female protagonist's figure and beauty. Unfortunately, the female protagonist was already drunk and unconscious and had no idea what was going on. The owner of this five-star hotel was Bao Fan's company, so there was a lot of room to maneuver. For example, Yang Daniu and the others were in the room next door. As for the male and female protagonists, there was naturally no need to guess. The male protagonist was Zhao Chang'e, who was forced into a corner, and the female protagonist was Fang Fei, who walked right into the trap. 10 minutes later, the intense filming was finally over. The camerawoman put away the camera and then covered Fang Fei with a blanket. The male lead, Zhao Chang'e, was still a little dazed. It was unknown whether he was reminiscing about the peak of his life or thinking about other things. Since things had come to this, Zhao Chang'e had no other choice. In order to not suffer in prison, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. Thinking about the sexy beauty Fang Fei next to him, Zhao Chang'e felt that he had made a small profit. Otherwise, he would not have had the chance to be so open with a beauty like Fang Fei. Although he did not have the chance to conquer a sexy beauty in bed, not everyone had such an opportunity. Moreover, he had taken advantage of her just now. Now, he was still thinking about Fang Fei's silky smooth skin and the softness of her chest. At this time, Yang Daniu walked in slowly and looked at the camerawoman. "Done shooting?" "Yes, it's all inside," the camerawoman said in a low voice. Of course, she was only a part-time worker. Her actual job was to be the Qin family's bodyguard. Yang Daniu nodded silently. "Okay, then go and wash it and send it to Zhao Chang'e's girlfriend." The camerawoman nodded and left. When she left, she did not forget to take a look at Zhao Chang'e. This man was really lucky. Other men wanted to get intimate, but did not have such a chance. At this time, only Yang Daniu was left in the hotel room. Yang Daniu said to Zhao Chang'e, "There's nothing for you to do now. When she wakes up tomorrow morning, you know how to act." I know, Zhao Chang'e replied happily. Yang Daniu threatened again. "Remember, don't mess around. There are cameras in the room. If I see you touching her, I will castrate you." Hearing this, Zhao Chang'e's little plan in his mind disappeared instantly. He was so scared that he almost became impotent. He said in a hurry, I dare not. After saying this, Yang Daniu left directly. The rest of the things would be handled by the people next door. However, he estimated that Zhao Chang'e did not have the guts to do that. As for Zhao Chang'e, after everyone left, he could only lie on the other side of the big bed obediently. He probably did not dare to sleep for the whole night, let alone do anything else. At the thought of a sexy and flirtatious beauty sleeping next to him, but he could not do anything, Zhao Chang'e felt that his heart was bleeding. In the morning, a scream pierced through the room. Zhao Chang'e was directly awakened by the scream. He did not know when he fell asleep last night. At this time, he looked to the side in a daze. It seemed that he had not come to his senses yet, and he did not recognize the beauty with disheveled hair next to him. But when he tried to recognize her, the beauty had already kicked him under the bed. Only then did Zhao Chang'e remember what happened last night, and immediately woke up. After all, he knew that this was the room next door. After all, he knew that those people in the room next door were still staring at him. "Miss Fang, why are you here?" Zhao Chang'e made a false accusation. Fang Fei glared at Zhao Chang'e angrily. She gritted her teeth and asked, "Who the hell are you? Why am I here?" The few bodyguards in the room next door stared at the scene on the screen and were already laughing. It was rare for them to see such an interesting scene. Everything that happened later was set up, so it was not interesting. After both parties explained to each other, Fang Fei could only admit her grievances. In the end, she threatened Zhao Chang'e not to say anything. Once he said anything, she would ask Zhao Chang'e to get out of the company immediately. Today, when Qin Sheng came to the company, he was in a very good mood. This was because on the way, Yang Daniu had already told him what happened last night and this morning. Qin Sheng listened with great interest. He only felt that Zhao Chang'e had taken advantage of him for nothing. However, He reckoned that Fang Fei had the heart to kill Zhao Changel now. However, she definitely would not guess that the mastermind behind this was Qin Sheng. However, even if she knew that he was the one who did it, what could she do? Anyway, Qin Sheng had already achieved his goal. Although Qin Sheng's means could not be seen in the light, he did not do anything to Fang Fei. He only took a few photos. If it was someone else who did this, it might be more than a few times worse. Therefore, Qin Sheng was already considered kind. Moreover, Fang Fei was not a decent woman. Otherwise, why would she give Qin Sheng such a chance? When Qin Sheng entered the company, he asked the lady at the front desk, "Has Miss Fang arrived?" The lady at the front desk smiled and shook her head. Therefore, Qin Sheng said, "Then, when Miss Fang arrives later, ask her to come to my office directly. I have something to ask her." After entering the office, Zhongshan was already waiting for Qin Sheng inside. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Everything went smoothly last night. In a few days, Fang Fei will leave." "That's good," Zhongshan said casually. He was not very concerned about these trivial matters. Qin Sheng and Zhongshan began to talk about business. About half an hour later, Fang Fei finally arrived at the company. After the lady at the front desk told her that Qin Sheng was looking for her, Fang Fei subconsciously felt a little nervous. She thought that Qin Sheng knew what had happened last night. However, after thinking about it carefully, how could Qin Sheng know? Therefore, in the end, Fang Fei still forced herself to calm down and walked into Qin Sheng's office. "Brother, are you looking for me?" After Fang Fei walked into the office, she asked with a smile. Except for a little tiredness on her face, she seemed to be fine. Fang Fei originally wanted to ask for leave to rest today. However, she was afraid that Qin Sheng would notice something strange. So, in the end, she still came to work at the company. Qin Sheng looked very calm as he asked, "It's okay, Sister Fang. I just wanted to ask you how you were last night. In the end, I had to leave first. I heard that Vice President Zhao sent you back. You didn't drink too much last night, did you?" Fang Fei responded very calmly. "Oh, brother, how could I drink too much with my alcohol tolerance? You heartless little rascal, you still know about this matter. You left me alone. If it weren't for Vice President Zhao, what would I do?" Speaking of this, Fang Fei even wanted to die. Last night, she originally wanted to take Qin Sheng down. Who knew that Qin Sheng would slip away? In the end, she even let Zhao Changel, that bastard, take advantage of her. It was really a double loss. However, after all, Fang Fei was not a young girl who was inexperienced. She was already in her 30s, married and divorced. What she not experienced? It was just a man sleeping with her. She just treated it as a one-night stand. Moreover, she had often cheated outside. "Sister, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I'll apologize to you later." Qin Sheng comforted Fang Fei, who was acting coquettishly. "That's more like it." Fang Fei snorted. Fang Fei was afraid that if she said too much, Qin Sheng would find something strange. She said that if there was nothing else, she would go back to the office first. Qin Sheng did not ask her to stay. After all, it will be interesting later. He smiled and nodded to let Fang Fei leave. This woman is not simple. It seems that nothing happened. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Zhongshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I've experienced a lot, so I'm not surprised anymore." Qin Sheng immediately gave Zhongshan a thumbs up and said, "Brother Zhong's words make sense." On the way out of Qin Sheng's office, Fang Fei happened to meet Zhao Changel, who had just come to work. Zhao Changel originally wanted to say hello. Who knew that Fang Fei would directly stare at him, and he immediately became timid. Looking at Fang Fei's receding figure, Zhao Changel thought of what happened last night. He cursed, "Be asterisk tisich, you'll be crying later." Half an hour later, there was a sudden sound of shrews cursing at the front desk. It was very unpleasant. It sounded like there was more than one person. Everyone in the company heard it. Everyone was curious about what happened. Not long after, these shrews directly rushed into the company. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, and no one dared to stop them. The leader was Zhao Changel's girlfriend, and of course, a few of her best friends. Zhao Changel's girlfriend cursed, "Zhao Changel, you F*** king come out." And that be asterisk TCH, all of you come out. You adulterous couple. I'll let everyone in the company know your true colors today. Such a big movement, of course, Qin Sheng heard it. As the current president of the company, Qin Sheng slowly walked to the outside hall with Zhong Shan and Yin Pan. At this time, Zhao Changle had already rushed out. He quickly pulled the woman and said, "Why are you here? Go back quickly. Don't fool around here. I'm F asterisk king fooling around. Don't you know what you've done? That be asterisk TCH. That be asterisk TCH. Come out." Zhao Changle's girlfriend said very fiercely. Zhao Changle's girlfriend, a few of her best friends, also shouted, "Zhao Changle, you son of a B asterisk TCH, how dare you cheat on me? Let that be asterisk TCH come out. I like to see how capable she is." The movement outside naturally alarmed Fong Fei. She did not think much at first, thinking that someone was making trouble or something. After she walked over and heard that it was about Zhao Changle, she vaguely felt that something was wrong. Then she saw Zhao Changle arguing with a few women not far away. Fong Fei muttered in her heart, "It's impossible for someone to know about my relationship with Zhao Changle so quickly, right?" To be on the safe side, Fong Fei felt that it was better to stay away from them, lest they get involved. Maybe this Zhao Changle was not a good person, and they just had something on him. However, just as Fong Fei was about to leave, Zhao Changle's girlfriend suddenly pointed at Fong Fei with a stack of photos and said, "Be asterisk TCH, it's you. You still want to run? Sisters, let's go." Fong Fei's face changed instantly, and her mind went blank. Was it really such a coincidence? When she came back to her senses, Zhao Changle's girlfriend had already rushed up with her best friends. A few women directly threw the photos at Fong Fei's face. In an instant, the entire office was filled with erotic photos of Zhao Changle and Fong Fei. Those colleagues who were curious about what had happened picked up the photos one after another. When they saw these large-scale photos, they could not help but be shocked to the extreme. They did not expect that there would be such explosive news today. This Zhao Changle was too F asterisk king amazing. He actually got the sexy and charming great beauty Fong Fei without a sound. Why did this great beauty Fong Fei take a fancy to Zhao Changle? This was too unexpected. Many of them were envious of Zhao Changle, and many of them were jealous of Zhao Changle. They hated themselves for not being Zhao Changle. The rest of them felt that it was a pity. They felt that a good cabbage had been taken by a pig. However, everyone was very grateful to Zhao Changle, because Zhao Changle had given everyone a feast for their eyes. This great beauty, Fong Fei's skin and figure were really not ordinary good. Sure enough, it was similar to what everyone had guessed. However, there was still one thing that everyone was curious about. How were they discovered? However, at this time, no one could care about this. The office was already in a mess. Zhao Changle's girlfriend and her best friends directly surrounded Fong Fei, and then they tore and beat Fong Fei. Zhao Changle wanted to help Fong Fei out, but he also fell into the trap. Others were watching the fun, who dared to get involved, for fear that they would be in trouble. At this time, Qin Sheng, who had already seen everything, felt that it was enough. He gave Zhong Shan a look, indicating that it was time to stop. Zhong Shan immediately arranged for the company's colleagues and security guards to separate all these people. After all, this was the company. As long as the effect was achieved, it was fine. After separating, Zhong Shan arranged several groups of people in different offices. Zhong Shan came out to solve the problem, and Zhao Changle did not need to say anything. He just needed to go through the motions. The main point was to not arouse others' suspicion. However, in the office, Zhong Shan still patted Zhao Changle's shoulder and said, "Changle, well done. You can resign successfully, and the other things will be written off." Zhao Changle could be considered to have seen these people's means. He was very scared and said, "Thank you, Assistant Zhong. Remember, these things are rotten in your stomach, or we can put you in prison at any time." Zhong Shan threatened again. Zhao Changle nodded quickly and did not dare to make any more trouble. After Zhao Changle's side was settled, naturally, there was no need to say anything about his girlfriend. After Zhong Shan and Zhao Changle entered, things were settled very quickly. His girlfriend obediently left with her best friends, leaving a group of onlookers who had not come back to their senses. As for Fang Fei, naturally, she was handed over to Qin Sheng to deal with. In Qin Sheng's office, at this moment, Fang Fei was extremely embarrassed. She was not as bright and beautiful as she used to be. She was dejected and had no spirit at all. Those who did not know better would think that this person had gone crazy. Fang Fei's expensive dress had been scratched and torn. Yin Pan's thin coat was draped over her shoulders to cover her exposed body. Her hair was even more messy, and there were a few scratches on her arms and face. Fortunately, it was not serious. It was all thanks to Zhao Changle's girlfriend's mercy. Although Qin Sheng felt a little distressed, he did not comfort her. Instead, he said with a gloomy face, "Sister Fang, you really disappointed me." Fang Fei was very smart and not simple. It was just that the things that happened last night directly stunned her. Before the incident, she had never thought that these things might be connected. But now, she had to think about what was going on. Therefore, Fang Fei did not speak. "Sister Fang, such a big thing has happened. You have made the company lose face. Do you know how bad the impact is?" Qin Sheng asked sternly. These were the words he had prepared long ago. Fang Fei raised her head slightly and stared at Qin Sheng, but still did not say anything. Qin Sheng ignored Fang Fei and continued. "So during this period of time, you don't need to come to the company. Rest well at home. I will report the specific things to the group. As for how to deal with it, wait for the group's results." Qin Sheng's behavior was very unusual. He was very cold and did not look like his usual self at all. Moreover, he did not comfort her or give her a chance to discuss. At this moment, Fang Fei finally figured out what was going on. Suddenly, she stared at Qin Sheng and then asked coldly, "Qin Sheng, all of this was done by you, right?" Qin Sheng was a little surprised and subconsciously froze for a few seconds. He did not expect Fang Fei to guess it so quickly. But so what if she guessed it? He had already achieved the result he wanted. Again, all of this cannot be blamed on others. After all, they were in different camps and represented different forces. Therefore, Qin Sheng replied with a smile, "What do you think? First, set a small goal. For example, remember in 1 second, Booksellers Mobile." Chapter 687. This was interesting. This time, Fang Fei really underestimated her opponent. She was also too confident. In her eyes, although Qin Sheng was the young master of the group, he was not a rich playboy who grew up in Siju City. He had only returned to Beijing at the end of last year and integrated into this kind of life. What could a young lad like him, who is still wet behind the ears, experience? In front of a sexy and coquettish beauty like her, even a man with strong self-control would find it difficult to control himself, let alone Qin Sheng. Therefore, she thought that Qin Sheng had taken the initiative to seduce her, but she did not know that Qin Sheng had played along with her and set a trap for her in the end. At this moment, Qin Sheng's behavior and words finally made Fang Fei come back to her senses. All of this was planned by Qin Sheng. Since Qin Sheng took the initiative to invite her to dinner and drink at night, she had fallen into Qin Sheng's trap step by step. As for the so-called college roommates she met at dinner and the cousin she met at the nightclub, she guessed that these people were all sent by Qin Sheng to get her completely drunk. After all, how could there be such a coincidence to meet acquaintances everywhere? If it was any other day, Fang Fei would definitely feel that something was wrong, but it was because she was too confident that Fang Fei did not think about those possibilities. In addition, she had drunk so much alcohol and was anxious for quick results. Fang Fei had lost her basic ability to judge. She guessed that even Zhao Changle's appearance and the two of them sleeping together were all arranged by Qin Sheng. After all, Zhao Changle was Qin Sheng's subordinate. Otherwise, how could those photos appear? Maybe even Zhao Changle's girlfriend had been bribed by Qin Sheng. Otherwise, how could his girlfriend know about it? In that kind of situation, only she and Zhao Changle could know about it. In order to set her up, Qin Sheng really put in a lot of effort and used so many resources. He really took her too seriously. "Qin Sheng, I really underestimated you. I've lost this time," Fang Fei said dejectedly. Qin Sheng had used such a vicious method to force her to leave. Even if she did not want to leave, she had no choice. Was she going to stay here and be ridiculed by everyone behind her back every day and be called a whore? Of course, Qin Sheng would not admit it. He pretended to be confused and said, "Sister Fong, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just stating the facts. The group has its own rules and regulations. I'm just doing things according to the rules. Otherwise, the company would be in chaos. Don't you think so?" If Fong Fei could be so calm yesterday, how could she suffer such grievances now? But a loss was a loss, and Fong Fei accepted it. Wasn't it just a matter of having his reputation destroyed? She no longer cared about these things. Otherwise, how could she have gotten to where she was today? Moreover, she would only be scolded by that man for being incompetent or useless. What else could he do to her? Fong Fei sneered and said, "Do you think I believe that? You're more shrewd and scheming than I thought. However, this also served as a reminder to them, because you're not as simple as they thought." Qin Sheng had no choice but to pay attention to such a Fong Fei. She was far from the Fong Fei who only knew how to show off during this period of time. Fortunately, he had taken her down in one fell swoop this time. Otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble there would be in the future? "Sister Fong, why do you have to do this?" Qin Sheng stopped joking around with Fong Fei and replied very seriously, "Isn't it great for a beautiful woman to stay at home and enjoy life? Why should she become someone else's chess piece?" Fong Fei said disdainfully, "Why don't you continue to pretend? Do you think that I won't know it's you just because you're pretending? So what if it's me? What can you do to me? Why? Thinking of taking revenge on me in the future? Do you have that qualification? Do you really think that you can conquer all men just because you're beautiful?" Qin Sheng snorted coldly. Fong Fei looked straight at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng retorted, "The young master of the group is indeed amazing. Unfortunately, even I know that the Qin family is not in a good situation. I'm not qualified to take revenge on you, but at least I'm qualified to see the day when you cry. I think that day is not far away." "What's wrong?" "The sugar daddy behind you has taken action. When I return to Beijing, I'll have a good fight with him." Qin Sheng was very angry at Fong Fei's provocation. Fong Fei suddenly laughed out loud. She laughed so hard that her tears were almost coming out. She did not even care about her breasts being exposed. She pointed at Qin Sheng and said, Are you trying to kill me with laughter? Then let's not wait and see," Qin Sheng said in a powerful voice. After saying this, there was no need for Qin Sheng to talk nonsense with Fong Fei anymore. Fong Fei was not qualified to be his opponent. The most important purpose of him doing this was to clear all the obstacles and quickly complete the company's restructuring. Of course, there was another purpose, which was to warn the person behind Fong Fei. "Yin Pan, see the guest out," Qin Sheng shouted directly. Yin Pan, who had been standing outside the door, pushed the door and entered after hearing it. She slowly walked over and said with a smile, "Miss Fong, this way, please." Fong Fei stared at Qin Sheng with a very pitiful look, as if she was waiting for Qin Sheng to end up like her. Finally, she quickly left Qin Sheng's office. Fong Fei left the company after slightly packing up. Along the way, Fong Fei did not care about anyone's gazes and pointing fingers. She once again returned to the appearance when she first came to the company. If such a matter could defeat her, then she would not be Fong Fei. After Fong Fei left, Qin Sheng directly called the company to report this matter. As for how the company would deal with it, Qin Sheng did not need to worry about it. But what was certain was that Fong Fei would definitely be transferred out of Shanghai. How could the old man miss such an opportunity? As for whether they would send more new people to Shanghai, Qin Sheng did not know. This was not something that Qin Sheng could control. After finishing these trivial matters, Qin Sheng invited Zhongshan and Yang Daniu to a restaurant downstairs for lunch. Yang Daniu had contributed a lot in this matter. He was responsible for everything. This man, who had been at the bottom for so many years, was very experienced. "Brother Zhong, the obstacles have been cleared. Next, you need to speed up on your side. I may go to Hangzhou in a few days. I'm not sure how long I'll stay, so the company side depends on you," Qin Sheng said earnestly. Zhongshan smiled and nodded. You don't need to worry about this side. As long as no one obstructs, you don't need to care at all. You just need a sign. Qin Sheng laughed out loud. It would be great if he could have a dozen more brother Zhong like this. Then he really did not need to care about anything and directly became a hands-off boss. After lunch, Qin Sheng did not go back to the company. Instead, he went directly to Poly Square to pick up Lin Su. Because Qin Sheng suddenly thought of something, he wanted to take Lin Su to see Hao Lei first. He could also talk to Hao Lei. He should be almost recovered in these 2 days. In short, Qin Sheng would ask Han Bing about Hao Lei's situation every day. After calling her, he found out that Lin Su had already returned home. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that Lin Su went home to change clothes. After visiting Hao Lei, they would directly go to the old lady's place. This way, it would not take up any time. Qin Sheng did not go upstairs. He waited for Lin Su at the entrance of the community. After a while, Lin Su came out after changing clothes. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He guessed that Lin Su was very nervous today. Otherwise, she would not be so formal. The outfit that Lin Su's bestie group had chosen for Lin Su today was neither too conservative nor too open. It looked normal, but it especially accentuated Lin Su's temperament. This was the effect that they wanted. Qin Sheng walked over and smiled. I didn't see you so formal last time. Lin Su naturally held Qin Sheng's arm and said resentfully, How do you know that I'm not formal? You just don't know. Last time, it took me half a day just to pick out the clothes. Well. I thought our goddess Lin was different from ordinary women. It turns out that you're also so tacky. Shouldn't you use your charm to conquer everyone? Qin Sheng deliberately joked. Lin Su stared at Qin Sheng and said angrily, Screw you. No matter what, I have to leave a good impression in front of Grandma. Otherwise, the relationship that I built with small aunt and sister will be wasted. Qin Sheng frowned and said, Is it so exaggerated? Why not? You said that Grandma has the highest status in the whole family. If Grandma doesn't like me, others will definitely have opinions, Lin Su said very seriously. Qin Sheng thought about it carefully and smiled. That seems to make sense. Then, Goddess Lin, good luck. I wish you success today. Why do I feel that you're not my boyfriend, but more like an onlooker? Lin Su was really angry with Qin Sheng. She had no choice but to pinch a tender part of Qin Sheng's waist to express her anger. Of course, she did not dare to use too much strength. Qin Sheng quickly apologized. Goddess Lin, I was wrong. Qin Sheng and Lin Su talked and laughed along the way. Although Qin Sheng and Lin Su had been together for so long, they still looked like a man and a woman in love. They were very intimate, which made people envious. In the hospital, Han Bing stayed with Hao Lei almost 24 hours a day. She would only leave when something happened. Even though Qin Sheng hired 2 special nurses to take care of Hao Lei, he was afraid that Han Bing would be too busy to take care of him alone. However, Han Bing was still worried. These 2 days, Hao Lei recovered quite well. After all, he used to be a soldier king. His physique and willpower were not comparable to ordinary people. When Qin Sheng and Lin Su walked into the ward, Han Bing was telling Hao Lei a joke. She was most worried about Hao Lei's mood. After all, anyone who lay on the bed like this every day would be irritated or depressed. This was definitely not good for his condition. You're here. Han Bing saw Qin Sheng and Lin Su walking into the ward and greeted them softly. She did not seem to feel uncomfortable. It seemed that this matter had made Han Bing take it lightly. After all, Lin Su was Qin Sheng's real girlfriend. Qin Sheng walked over slowly and asked, How are you? Are you better these 2 days? Hao Lei did not think much about it. The most important thing for him now was to recover quickly. Only then could he help Qin Sheng. Otherwise, it would be useless to say more. It's okay, much better. But I guess I won't be able to help you for a while. Be careful. Hao Lei sighed and said. Of course, he knew Qin Sheng's current situation. It was a time when he needed help. Unfortunately, he was like this. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, Don't think so much. There's still Lao Chong and the others. Get well soon. We brothers can eat meat and drink wine together. On the other side, after Lin Su and Hao Lei said a few words of comfort, she had already started chatting with Han Bing. She admired Han Bing very much now, as if she had seen how she took care of Qin Sheng in the past. She did not know what was going on between Han Bing and Hao Lei. She would ask Qin Sheng later. Qin Sheng and Lin Su stayed in the hospital for more than an hour. They were basically chatting with Hao Lei and Han Bing to relieve their boredom. When it was almost time, they left the hospital and went to the old bungalow on Sinan Road. Qin Sheng and Lin Su definitely did not know that Song Ruyu, who had not left Shanghai, was chatting with the old lady in the old bungalow at the moment. This was interesting. First, set a small goal. For example, remember in 1 second, Booksellers Mobile. Chapter 688. What a pity Song Ruyu asked for leave to come to Shanghai that day. She was supposed to go back the next day, but the leader knew that she was in Shanghai, so he arranged for her to deal with something. Since her company had a lot of cooperation in Shanghai, Song Ruyu stayed in Shanghai for a few more days. Song Ruyu would go back to Beijing the next day. She hadn't contacted Qin Sheng recently. She heard that the old lady had been discharged from the hospital, so she decided to visit the old lady before she left. Perhaps no one had expected such a scene to happen, whether it was the old lady, Zhu Qingwen, Qin Ran, or Song Husheng. He didn't stop Song Ruyu from coming to Shanghai because he wanted her to meet Lin Su. In this way, Song Ruyu wouldn't want to marry Qin Sheng. However, Song Ruyu didn't see Lin Su these days. He didn't expect to see her at the old lady's place before she left. Song Husheng knew what Song Ruyu was thinking. She didn't like Qin Sheng very much. She just wanted to fulfill the promise in his grandfather's heart, which was also a sore point in his grandfather's heart. His grandfather always thought that the Song family owed the Qin family. Therefore, when Qin Chang'an started his business, old Master Song helped him a lot. However, the Qin family gradually deviated from the Song family, so old Master Song kept a distance from them. However, this didn't affect the relationship between the two families. Therefore, old Master Song made the marriage between Song Husheng and Qin Ran. However, the two young people didn't like each other, so old Master Song didn't say anything. In the end, there was only the seemingly joking marriage between the two old masters. Song Ruyu knew clearly that it was a promise that her grandfather couldn't let go of. Therefore, after knowing that Qin Sheng was back, old Master Song took the initiative to make the marriage happen. However, old Master Song wasn't too anxious. He just wanted the two young people to get along with each other slowly. When the time was right, he would make the decision directly. Based on the influence of the Song family, be it Qin Chang'an or Qin Sheng, they would definitely not reject this marriage. Everyone knew that marrying the granddaughter of the Song family would be a big gain. Moreover, this precious granddaughter of his was originally very outstanding. This was a well-known fact. There were more than 1 or 2 families in Sijio City who wanted to form a connection through marriage. There were also too many families who wanted to pursue or had pursued his precious granddaughter. Therefore, old Master Song didn't think it was a problem. Grandfather Song also had other considerations. His precious granddaughter had reached the age of marriage, but she didn't seem anxious at all. Although she had a lot of friends of the opposite sex, they didn't have romantic feelings for each other. It was as if she hadn't considered marriage at all. He didn't know what she was thinking. In the old foreign-style house of the Zhu family on Sinan Road, Shanghai was a bit stuffy after the rain. The old lady was weak and did not dare to blow in the air conditioner. So Zhu Qingwen bought several electric fans and put them in the living room and the old lady's bedroom. In fact, there were only a few people in the Zhu family today. Except for the medical staff and the nanny, only the old lady, Wu Yajun, and Zhu Qingwen came over. No one else came to disturb the old lady. They all knew that the old lady still needed to rest during this period. Wu Yajun had been in Shanghai for a while. Old Master Song had been discharged from the hospital and was ready to go back to Beijing. Wu Yajun had been working very hard during this period. She accompanied the Zhu family's old lady almost 24 hours a day. As the only daughter-in-law of the Zhu family, she had been very competent. The Zhu family was quite satisfied with her. Song Ruyu sat next to the Zhu family and chatted with the Zhu family. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun sat opposite them, watching them chatting with a smile, peeling fruits and pouring tea for them. They appreciated the Song family's granddaughter very much. After all, she was so excellent that many of her papers have been included in the internal reference list. Some big shots praised her for being as outstanding as a man. It was said that her teacher intended to train her. Now, she was the actual person in charge of a department, but she kept a low profile. Apart from the actual salary, she didn't even mention the specific position. If she hadn't politely refused, her teacher might have asked her to go directly to the local government to become an official. Song Ryu had only one reason at that time. She only wanted to do theoretical research quietly in the next 10 years. She didn't want to be disturbed by other things, especially if she wanted to work in a local government or ministry. Although it was theoretical research, Song Ryu had traveled to many places in the country in the past few years to combine theory with concrete practice. For example, last year, in order to complete a paper on how to accurately help the poor in different areas and how to avoid certain practical problems, she had spent almost half a year doing research outside. From the slums in the eastern coastal cities to the ordinary villages in the less developed cities in the central regions, and finally to the remote mountainous areas in the western poor provinces and cities, her courage and patience were enough to make people give her a thumbs up. In the end, this thesis was directly sent to the desks of several key leaders by her teacher. Then it was signed and distributed to the various provinces and cities for discussion. One of the leaders directly called Old Master Song and said, "Old Master Song, your granddaughter is amazing." Old Master Song was so happy that he talked about it with everyone he met for several days. However, he was already used to it, because his granddaughter's growth had always been accompanied by all kinds of honors. What was rare and precious was that she had always been down to earth and had never been proud or confused about it. Everyone was very clear that Song Ryu, who was less than 30 years old, was still very young and had a bright future. Therefore, many people thought highly of the Song family. Old Master Song was really well prepared. Now, everyone was looking forward to seeing who would go further in the future, Song Hushing or Song Ryu. Because Song Ryu was so outstanding, both Qin Chang'an and Qin Ran wanted Qin Sheng to have more contact with Song Ryu. In this way, Qin Sheng might have a chance to make a choice. They sincerely believed that no matter how outstanding Lin Su was, she couldn't be compared with Song Ryu. Otherwise, based on their understanding of Qin Sheng's temperament and their love for him, how could he do such a thing? Because it was very likely that Qin Sheng, who had just come back, would be particularly disgusted. If that happened, he might even directly leave the Qin family. After all, Lin Su had gone through thick and thin with Qin Sheng all the way to where he was today. If Qin Sheng abandoned Lin Su, he would really be worse than an animal. Therefore, not only the Qin family, but also the Zhu family thought so. When Qin Sheng came back, they thought about it. Later, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu became more frequent, so they were more expectant about it. Moreover, the Song family and the Qin family have been friends for generations. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. However, compared with the Qin family, the Zhu family was more rational. Qin Sheng's choice was the most important. No matter what choice he made, they would absolutely support him and would never force him to do anything. This was also the reason why Zhu Qingwen treated Lin Su more seriously than his own daughter after they met. Because Lin Su was Qin Sheng's girlfriend, he had to treat Lin Su well so that Lin Su would treat Qin Sheng better. Today, no one in the Zhu family expected that Song Ryu would suddenly come to visit the old lady in Shanghai. Therefore, they could not control how things would develop. Now that Qin Sheng was about to arrive, they could not possibly see him off, could they? Thinking about it carefully, maybe it was also a good thing. They would not think so much in the future. Taking a step back, Song Ryu was so excellent that she might not like Qin Sheng. It was just their wishful thinking. "Ryu, you've been to Shanghai a lot recently. Are you busy with work?" The old lady was very concerned and handed Song Ryu an orange at the same time. Song Ryu was probably the perfect daughter-in-law in the eyes of all the elders. She was even prettier than celebrities. She also had the temperament to back her up, not to mention the temperament of obsession. She was capable and had a strong family background. The Song family's background was not small. Therefore, whether it was the Qin family or the Zhu family, it was reasonable for these people to think so. Perhaps the elders of the big families in Suzhou City also thought so. Song Ryu felt a little guilty this time. She came to Shanghai for Qin Sheng. Although she also had a job, she could not say that she came for Qin Sheng. She had to nod and said, "Yes, Grandma. We have a project cooperation with the Institute of International Studies of Fudan University and a project with the municipal government. Therefore, we have been to Shanghai a lot recently." Zhu Qingwen, who might know more about this, said with a smile, "Mom, maybe you don't know that Ruyu's teacher is from Fudan University, so we have a lot of cooperation with Fudan University these years." Of course, Zhu Qingwen knew Song Ruyu's teacher very well. He could be regarded as Zhu Qingwen Sr. They had met when they were in Fudan University and had been in contact with each other these years. However, they met less often. After all, this senior had a smooth career after entering Jing City. Now that he had reached such a high position, not everyone could meet him. However, when this senior had returned to Shanghai last year, Zhu Zhangshun had been elected to the municipal government. They had a family dinner in private. The old lady smiled casually and said, "Oh, I see. But Ryu, you are really amazing. Your grandpa has praised you a lot." Song Ryu smiled embarrassedly and said, "Grandma, my grandpa has always been like this. You must know better than me." "Ha ha ha, you are too modest." The old lady couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. Song Ryu said obediently, "Grandma, I will go back to Beijing tomorrow. Take care of yourself. I will accompany Grandpa to visit you later. He said he hasn't seen you for a long time and wants to have a good talk with you." "Oh, I'm fine. Go back and persuade your grandfather not to make trouble. We are so old, don't cause trouble for the children," the old lady said in a hurry. They were all old bones. If there was an accident, no one could afford it. Song Ryu smiled and said, "Grandma, we can't persuade Grandpa. Maybe your words will work." Okay. I will call him later. You don't have to worry about it." The old lady was very relieved. After all, there were fewer and fewer old guys. Since Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend, the old lady gave up on this idea. She thought differently from others. If Qin Sheng did not have a girlfriend, it would be possible for them to be a matchmaker. However, Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend, so she did not think about these things anymore. However, the old lady was still very concerned about Song Ruyu's feelings. She smiled and said, "Girl, you are not young anymore. Do you want me to introduce a boyfriend to you?" Many people had asked this question, so Song Ryu knew how to answer it. She smiled and said, "Grandma, I don't want to think about it now. Maybe I haven't met the right one yet. I will find him when the time comes." The old lady let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, it is a pity that Qin Sheng already has a girlfriend. Otherwise, I would think you two are quite suitable. What a pity." As soon as the old lady said this, Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun were stunned at the same time. They didn't expect that the old lady would bring up this topic so directly. They didn't know whether the old lady did it intentionally or not. However, after thinking about it, Qin Sheng and Lin Su were about to arrive. Anyway, they would see each other in a while. But they didn't notice that after hearing the old lady's words, Song Ryu's face was obviously a little stiff and her eyes were a little disappointed. Then, she felt relieved and relaxed. But all this happened in the blink of an eye, so no one noticed it. First, set a small goal. For example, remember in 1 second, Booksellers Mobile. Chapter 689. Leaving Qin Sheng as Song Hesheng had guessed, Song Ryu didn't like Qin Sheng at all. It would be unreasonable if Song Ryu fell in love with Qin Sheng just because they had met for a few times or because of their family friendship. Unless Qin Sheng had the temperament of a bastard, it was impossible for him to conquer Song Ryu in an instant. Otherwise, why was Song Ryu still single after so many years? She hadn't even been in a relationship. There were so many talented young men from aristocratic families and business elites pursuing her. Otherwise, Song Ryu would have been married long ago. Song Ryu had her own considerations about this matter, not only because she wanted to fulfill her grandfather's promise, but also because it was the most important reason. After hearing the old lady's words, Song Ryu gave up all her previous thoughts. After all, Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend. Song Ryu suddenly burst into laughter. She might be very capable in many things, but it seemed that she was still a blank piece of paper when it came to love. She only cared about her own thoughts and forgot to ask the most important question of whether Qin Sheng had a girlfriend or not. Now that she thought about some things in the past, wasn't it a little too naive? Fortunately, she finally got the answer from the old lady, so that she wouldn't make the same mistake in the future. It would be a bit embarrassing if she met Qin Sheng again. Song Ryu shook her head in her heart. No, because she was Song Ryu. At this time, Zhu Qingwen saw that Song Ryu was silent, so she said with a smile, "Mom, don't worry about these things. Ryu is so excellent that she will definitely find a suitable Mr. Right." Song Ryu was afraid that others would think too much, so she said in a hurry, "Grandma, although I haven't known Qin Sheng for a long time, I think he is also very excellent. But I haven't met his girlfriend yet." The old lady smiled happily as she said, "Ryu, you're in time today. They'll be here soon. In fact, I haven't met Sheng Er's girlfriend yet. I just came back from the hospital, so I asked Sheng Er to bring his girlfriend here for me to meet." Song Ryu was surprised again. She didn't expect that she would be here in time. It was such a coincidence. However, Song Ryu was not very surprised. She was just a little curious about what kind of girlfriend Qin Sheng had found. At this time, Zhu Qingwen's phone rang. Seeing the name on the screen, Zhu Qingwen smiled and stood up. "Mom, they should be here. I'll go to the door to pick them up. Have a seat first." After Zhu Qingwen stood up and left, Wu Yajun continued to chat with the old lady and Song Ryu. The old lady continued to talk about her expectations for Qin Sheng's girlfriend, while Song Ryu just smiled and echoed. Qin Sheng did not ask Yang Danyu to drive the car in directly. Instead, he asked Yang Danyu to park the car by the roadside. He would walk in with Lin Su and the others would wait outside. Although Yang Danyu did not know why, he could only do as he was told. He thought that this place should be safe enough and there would not be any accidents. After Qin Sheng got out of the car, he took over the fruits that he bought. Then, he held Lin Su's hand and walked towards the door while talking and laughing. The two of them were so lovey-dovey that Yang Danyu and the other bodyguard behind them were envious. Today, no matter where Lin Su went, she would be the most stunning existence. It was no wonder that Yin Chaozong was so infatuated with her back then. Unfortunately, in the end, Qin Sheng still beat him to it. However, at this moment, Lin Su was even more nervous than when she met Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran last time. After all, this meeting was more important than the last time. It could almost decide whether she and Qin Sheng could continue their relationship. Moreover, she didn't want to have any setbacks with Qin Sheng. As soon as Qin Sheng and Lin Su walked to the door of the foreign-style house, the electric door was opened from the inside. Zhu Qingwen, who was still charming, walked out with a smile. Lin Su hurried to greet her. "Auntie." During this period, Lin Su and Zhu Qingwen had been familiar with each other. Zhu Qingwen often invited Lin Su to dinner and took her to several gatherings and activities. In private, others were guessing Lin Su's identity. Some even said that she was Zhu Jiayo's girlfriend. Zhu Qingwen walked to Lin Su. She held Lin Su's hands, pursed her lips, and looked her up and down. "Wow, Su, you're so beautiful today. I'm a little jealous." Zhu Qingwen said this to ease Lin Su's nervousness. She could tell from Lin Su's face that Lin Su was somewhat uneasy. Lin Su laughed and said, "Auntie, you must have been more beautiful than me when you were young. So you're saying that I'm old?" Zhu Qingwen teased her on purpose. Lin Su replied immediately, "Auntie, I didn't mean that. You're still young. Did you forget that the last time we went out together, people said that we were sisters?" Zhu Qingwen held Lin Su's arm and laughed. "Ha ha ha, Auntie, you're joking. I don't know how old I am." Qin Sheng smiled as he watched Lin Su and small aunt chatting and teasing each other. The closer Lin Su was to his relatives, the happier Qin Sheng was, because both he and Lin Su were the kind of people who lacked love since they were young. He and his grandfather depended on each other since they were young. His grandfather was a master who didn't care about worldly affairs. The way they got along with each other was very special. It couldn't be the way parents and children would get along. It was not until Uncle Lin and Aunt Wang came that Qin Sheng got more love. As for Lin Su, after her mother passed away, although she returned to the big Lin family, except for the old lady who loved her dearly, the others either bullied her or ignored her. Even her biological father did not care about her at all. Therefore, in comparison, Lin Su was more pitiful and lacked love than Qin Sheng. Because of this, Lin Su became more and more dependent on Qin Sheng. It seemed that in this world, except for her grandmother, there was no one more important than Qin Sheng. After chatting with Lin Su for a while, Zhu Qingwen said, "Let's go in. Your grandmother and aunt are waiting." Some time ago, Qin Sheng had already told Lin Su that after her grandmother was hospitalized, his aunt came to Shanghai to take care of her. During this period, they had been busy, so Lin Su knew about it. In fact, when the old lady was hospitalized, Lin Su wanted to visit her grandmother because she thought it was her duty as Qin Sheng's girlfriend. However, Qin Sheng didn't mention this topic, so Lin Su didn't say anything. She just felt a little disappointed. Therefore, it was Qin Sheng's fault. He didn't think it through. He should have taken Lin Su to visit her grandmother at that time. In this way, the Zhu family could leave a good impression on Lin Su. However, it could also be that Qin Sheng had been too busy during this period of time, so he had forgotten about this matter. When they were halfway, Zhu Qingwen told Qin Sheng, "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you that Ru Yu is here today." Zhu Qingwen seemed to say it casually, but she was observing Qin Sheng's reaction after finishing her words. No matter how well Song Ruyu had disguised herself, Zhu Qingwen had sensed something strange. Now she had to verify it from Qin Sheng's side. If it was true, this matter would be somewhat complicated. As expected, after hearing this, Qin Sheng subconsciously stopped and said in surprise, "Why is Song Ruyu here?" Qin Sheng thought that Song Ruyu had returned to Beijing. Last time, when Song Ruyu suddenly returned to Shanghai, she insisted that she had something to do with Hao Lei's death. Qin Sheng felt that the atmosphere between them was a little strange. Although he tried his best to make Song Ruyu feel at ease, he didn't contact her later for some reason. Oh, she came to Shanghai on a business trip and will return to Beijing tomorrow. She heard that the old lady was discharged, so she came to visit her, Zhu Qingwen explained with a smile. However, Qin Sheng's reaction had already betrayed him. Qin Sheng didn't know why Song Ruyu stayed in Shanghai for so long, but he was sure that it was an accident today. How could Song Ruyu know that he would bring Lin Su here today? Since Song Ruyu didn't tell him, Qin Sheng naturally explained, "Oh, I'm fine. I haven't seen her since then." Of course, Lin Su didn't know who Song Ruyu was, but she knew that it must be a girl. She asked casually, "Who is Song Ruyu? Why haven't I heard about her?" Qin Sheng hurriedly explained, "She's Grandpa Song's granddaughter in Beijing. The Song family is a friend of the Qin family and the Zhu family. I didn't know her until I went to visit Grandpa Song this year." Qin Sheng explained in this way to avoid Lin Su thinking too much. After all, Lin Su was his girlfriend. When Zhu Qingwen led Qin Sheng and Lin Su into the foreign-style house, the old lady was just talking about something that old Master Song had done in the past, which made Wu Yajun and Song Ruyu laugh. The old lady also laughed from ear to ear. Zhu Qingwen found it funny and said, "What are you talking about? Why is it so funny?" At this time, everyone saw Qin Sheng and Lin Su behind Zhu Qingwen. Lin Su held Qin Sheng's arm tightly. This pair of golden boy and jade girl were so compatible at this moment, as if they were born to be a couple. The old lady also saw them and subconsciously wanted to stand up. Unfortunately, it was difficult for her to move. Song Ruyu and Wu Yajun hurriedly went forward to support the old lady. After the old lady stood up, she slowly walked toward Qin Sheng and Lin Su. From the look in her eyes, it could be seen that she had a good first impression of Lin Su. That was because, at least in appearance and temperament, the girl in front of her was not inferior to the girl from the Song family, which made the old lady feel relieved. She was afraid that Qin Sheng had found a kind of girl with heavy makeup or too vulgar rouge and powder, which would be incompatible with the whole Zhu family. However, after thinking about it carefully, how could the grandson of the Zhu family only have that kind of taste? Zhu Qingwen said with a smile, "Mom, Qin Sheng and Lin Su are here." Qin Sheng introduced them happily. "Grandma, this is my girlfriend, Lin Su." The old lady didn't say anything. She didn't know why she seemed to see the shadow of Qin Sheng's mother in Lin Su's eyes. However, Lin Su and Qin Sheng's mother didn't look like each other. Maybe the old lady was old and dim-sighted, or there might be some other reasons. Seeing the old lady, Lin Su was very nervous. She was the Empress Dowager of the Zhu family, far from being an ordinary old lady. She was an old lady who had witnessed and experienced wars and vicissitudes. However, Lin Su told herself in her heart, "Lin Su, you have to calm down. You will definitely pass today." When the old lady walked up to Lin Su lowered her head and said with a smile, "Grandma." The old lady grabbed Lin Su's arm and was so excited that she didn't know what to say. She kept looking Lin Su up and down, and then smiled at her, which made Lin Su more nervous. Sit down, sit down." The old lady seemed to think of something and hurriedly pulled Lin Su inside. Lin Su looked back at Qin Sheng, who told her with his eyes, "It's okay. Go ahead." Lin Su then supported the old lady and walked to the sofa with them. At this time, Song Ruyu, who had been standing by the side, felt like an outsider, which was incompatible with the warm atmosphere of the Zhu family. Moreover, she had already seen Qin Sheng's girlfriend, so she chose to leave. Song Ruyu sensibly said to Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun, "Aunt Zhu, Aunt Wu, I'll go back first." At this time, the old lady definitely had no time to care about Song Ruyu. All her attention was on Lin Su. Nothing was more important than her future granddaughter-in-law. Wu Yajun said politely, "Ruyu, why are you in such a hurry? It's not too late to leave after dinner." Song Ruyu naturally didn't dare to say yes. She replied, "Aunt, I have an appointment with my friends tonight. I won't bother you." "Qin Sheng, then you should see Ryu off for us." Zhu Qingwen, who was behind them, directly made the decision. She also thought that it was not suitable for Song Ryu to stay, otherwise the atmosphere would be extremely awkward. Song Ryu might also be restless. After all, she had discovered the subtle relationship between the two young people. It was not until then that Qin Sheng remembered to say hello to Song Ryu. He smiled shyly and nodded. Song Ryu looked quite calm. She didn't deliberately act like a stranger to Qin Sheng. Instead, she smiled and joked, "I didn't expect your girlfriend to be so beautiful." "Thank you," Qin Sheng said politely. After saying that, Song Ryu went straight out. Qin Sheng followed her closely. This was not the first time that he had seen Song Ryu off, so he was used to it. First, set a small goal. For example, remember in 1 second, Booksellers Mobile. Chapter 690. Feeling warm and sad, Qin Sheng had met Song Ryu for the first time when he visited the Song family during the Spring Festival. He had been impressed by her temperament. He had never met a woman like her. It seemed that the second time Qin Sheng had met Song Ryu was in this old foreign-style house. That time, Song Ryu had come to visit the old lady. The old lady had intended for Song Ryu and Qin Sheng to meet Qin Sheng, so she had asked Qin Sheng to show Song Ryu around in Shanghai. Later on, they had met several times, but it had never been like this. Qin Sheng had brought his girlfriend to meet Song Ryu. In the living room, Lin Su, who had met the old lady for the first time, became the main character. Zhu Qingwen introduced Wu Yajun to Lin Su. Lin Su greeted her politely. Wu Yajun nodded with a smile, just like the old lady. She had a good first impression of Lin Su, but she had to get to know her better. However, Zhu Qingwen had told Wu Yajun about Lin Su many times and praised her a lot. Therefore, Wu Yajun felt that if Zhu Qingwen was so satisfied with Lin Su, then Qin Sheng's girlfriend would not be a problem. Now, it was up to the old lady. Lin Su noticed that Qin Sheng had sent Song Ryu out, but she didn't think much about it. When she saw Song Ryu just now, she didn't pay much attention to her. She just felt that this woman gave her a special feeling, which was as comfortable and quiet as water. Outside the old foreign-style house, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu walked side by side. Song Ryu didn't walk fast. The sunlight shone on her through the gaps between the leaves. She seemed to be in a trance and mysterious, like a beam of light and shadow. Qin Sheng broke the silence and said, "I thought you had gone back to Beijing." Song Ryu, who had given up on those thoughts and returned to her normal self, appeared to be quite relaxed. When she thought about the journey that only she knew about, she found it a little ridiculous. She shouldn't have done that. Everything was too natural. The leader of my unit knew that I was in Shanghai, so he asked me to do something. That's why I was delayed for a few days, Song Ryu replied in a low voice. Her tone was very flat, as if it lacked the usual intimacy. It was more like the tone she used when she first met Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng sensed it more or less. He couldn't help but wonder if Song Ryu really had feelings for him. She suddenly became like this because she knew he had a girlfriend. Song Ryu intentionally distanced herself from Qin Sheng, which made him a little uncomfortable. He couldn't just keep silent, which would make the atmosphere more awkward. Therefore, he took the initiative to find topic. "I've heard many people say that you're very outstanding. You really put us men to shame." This was a little awkward, which did not seem to be Qin Sheng's style. Even Song Ryu was surprised. She turned to Qin Sheng subconsciously and said, "I'm just doing what I should do. Everyone does the same thing." "You're right." Qin Sheng scratched his head and smiled. When they were about to reach the door, Song Ryu said casually, "Go and accompany your girlfriend. It's not good to leave her alone." Qin Sheng breathed a sigh of relief as he said, "See you when we get back to Beijing." "I'll see you in Beijing." Song Ryu nodded and walked out of the house. Qin Sheng watched Song Ryu disappear until the door of the foreign-style house was slowly closed. He didn't have many complicated feelings for Song Ryu. He just admired this woman very much. He had never thought that he would be so familiar with her in the future. Moreover, not everyone could have such an excellent woman that most men looked up to. Some things were only known to the parties involved. Others were just guessing. However, there were also many things that the parties involved didn't know, which were arranged by others. Therefore, when these things were put together, they became a strange combination of factors, which made Qin Sheng speechless. When Qin Sheng returned to the living room, the four women in the living room seemed to be chatting happily. They were laughing and talking, which made Qin Sheng feel relieved. He didn't think about other things, because this was the most precious time. It was rare to see his grandmother so happy. Qin Sheng did not disturb them. He just sat quietly by their side and listened to their conversation. This was what he had always lacked the most, the warmth of a family. Anyone in such an environment would enjoy it very much. "I didn't expect you to know each other like this. Maybe this is what you young people call fate," the old lady said, very touched after listening to Lin Su's story of how they met, how they reunited, and all the bits and pieces in between. "This should be what love looks like." Lin Su said, "I didn't expect that." After chatting for so long, Lin Su finally felt less nervous because of the old lady's kindness and the two aunties' concern. She began to treat them as her family and chatted happily with them. Lin Su felt that Qin Sheng's family was really good. Everyone made her feel especially warm and had never made things difficult for her. They all liked her very much. She had never thought that this would happen. After all, the two families behind Qin Sheng had very strong backgrounds. They were not ordinary families. Lin Su felt that Qin Sheng's family was really good. Thinking about how Qin Sheng had been treated when he went to the Lin family twice, Lin Su couldn't help feeling a little ashamed. It was totally different. Lin Su had already handed everything over to Qin Sheng. The rest of her life belonged to Qin Sheng. Hence, she turned around and glanced at Qin Sheng, who was standing beside her small aunt. She said sincerely, "Grandma, I've always felt that meeting Qin Sheng was the luckiest thing in my life." Many girls might not say such words in front of a boy's family. They might not have the courage, or they might be embarrassed, or it might make people think that they are pretentious. However, Lin Su was expressing her feelings, and everyone could feel her sincerity. Qin Sheng looked at the silly Lin Su and smiled. He wouldn't let her down. They could understand each other's thoughts from their eyes. Both Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun were happy to see that. They could feel the strong love. They loved each other deeply, so they didn't need to think about other things. The old lady was touched, and her eyes turned red. She said subconsciously, Susu, you are a good girl. If Shang Er's mother can see you, she will definitely be very satisfied and happy. After that, the old lady began to wipe her tears. Every time she thought of her poor eldest daughter, she would feel very sad, because it was one of the three most painful things in life. Losing a daughter in middle age, not to mention such a warm scene today. Because for any mother, when her son, who was growing up day by day, finally came back with a beautiful girlfriend, and then told her, Mom, this is my girlfriend, your future daughter-in-law. What a joyous and expectant thing it was. However, Qin Sheng's mother, who had passed away, couldn't see it. Therefore, the old lady's words hit everyone in the Zhu family. No one expected that the old lady would suddenly say such a thing. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun's eyes turned red. They were afraid that the old lady would be too sad, so they walked over to comfort her in a hurry. Qin Sheng's eyes also turned red. To him, the weight of the word mother was too heavy. Every time he thought of his mother, he would feel sad and sad. Moreover, his grandmother had said such a sad sentence. Qin Sheng could not help but think, if his mother could really see Lin Su in heaven, would she be very satisfied? Would she be happy for him? Would she be very happy for him? Qin Sheng walked over in a hurry, held his grandmother's hand, and said, Grandma, Mother may have seen Lin Su. She must be very satisfied. The old lady couldn't help crying. She directly hugged Qin Sheng and said, My silly grandson. Lin Su didn't know what to do at first. She didn't expect that the warm atmosphere would suddenly become so sad. But then she also felt sad, not only because she thought of Qin Sheng's mother, but also because she thought of her mother. Both she and Qin Sheng were so pitiful. After the old lady let go of Qin Sheng, she turned around and held Lin Su's hand, saying with tears in her eyes, Su, I know you're a good girl, and I know you love Sheng very much. I'm old and I don't know when I'll die. The only thing I'm worried about is Sheng Er. Now I give him to you. You must treat him well. You must love him for me, so I can rest assured. After the old lady said these words, everyone could feel how much she cared about Qin Sheng and how much she couldn't bear to let go of this grandson. It seemed that after she left, no one would care about her grandson. Hence, she was a little worried and afraid. That was why she paid so much attention to him. This time, the old lady really couldn't persuade her anymore. Be it Zhu Qingwen or Wu Yajun, they didn't know how long it had been since they saw the old lady like this. It seemed that since Qin Sheng came back, the old lady had shed tears several times, but this time was the saddest. She did not expect that the old lady would suddenly break down and say these words to her with tears streaming down her face. She could feel the weight of these words and could also feel the old lady's recognition and attention to her. Otherwise, why would she hand Qin Sheng over to her? Zhu Qingwen wiped her tears and said to Lin Su in a hurry, Su, just say yes to me. Wu Yajun also shed tears silently and kept comforting the old lady. Mom, don't say these words. The children can't stand it. Don't worry. Susu will definitely care about Sheng Er. What about Qin Sheng? Qin Sheng didn't know what to say. He had never thought that today's meeting would be like this. His tears kept flowing and couldn't be dried no matter how hard he tried. Qin Sheng sobbed silently. This was the power of family. The old lady's words made Qin Sheng feel very sad. If he hadn't left all these years, would he have accompanied his grandmother to grow old? Then she wouldn't be like this today. It was not until then that Lin Su came to her senses. She said with tears, Grandma, don't worry. I will definitely treat him well, even better than myself. I will also feel sorry for him, because he is my everything. I won't let you down. I definitely won't. After Lin Su said that, the old lady finally felt relieved. She held Lin Su in her arms and murmured, Okay, good girl. I believe you. The old lady didn't dare to let the old lady go on. Such emotional fluctuations could easily cause problems and overdraft the old lady's broken body. Therefore, they all comforted the old lady, especially Qin Sheng and Lin Su. They said a lot of words to make the old lady feel at ease and comfortable. The old lady finally calmed down. Everyone let out a long sigh of relief. If something happened to the old lady today because of Lin Su's arrival, it would be really troublesome. Chapter 691. Foreshadowing. Having lived to such an old age, the old lady actually had no regrets. The only thing she couldn't let go was this grandson who had just come back. She always thought about him, fearing that he would suffer or be tired, which made the other juniors of the Zhu family very envious of Qin Sheng's treatment. Seeing Qin Sheng's girlfriend today, the old lady was very happy and satisfied. Listening to Lin Su talk about all the things that she and Qin Sheng had experienced over the years, the old lady knew that this girl really loved Qin Sheng deeply. That was enough. It was a very happy thing to have someone who liked you, someone who loved you, someone who cared about you, someone who cared about you, and someone who missed you. The old lady had lived for so long and experienced so many vicissitudes. She had met many different people, so she was quite good at judging people. Moreover, some things could actually be seen at a glance. This sad episode was finally over. Qin Sheng and Lin Su accompanied the old lady and began to chat. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Tonight's dinner might not be very sumptuous, but it was all home-cooked dishes cooked by the two elders. Not everyone could have such treatment. After all, the two elders' status was not simple, especially the men behind them. Being coaxed by Qin Sheng and Lin Su, the old lady was so happy that she almost could not close her mouth. She was very concerned about how Qin Sheng and Lin Su got along with each other. Sometimes, they would even expose each other's shortcomings, which made the old lady laugh uncontrollably. At this time, Lin Su had really let go. She was no longer nervous and uneasy as when she just entered the door, because she felt warmth and sincerity. In this way, she could get along with the elders more naturally, which would also make them feel more at ease. Everything was much smoother than expected. Of course, no one expected the episode just now, but it seemed to make the atmosphere more harmonious. During dinner, the old lady didn't sit down because of the seniority. Naturally, she let Lin Su accompany her. Today, she gave all the treatment that Qin Sheng had received in the past to Lin Su. The old lady barely moved her chopsticks. The doctor also didn't allow her to eat these things. Therefore, most of the time, the old lady was putting food into Lin Su's bowl. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun did the same. Lin Su didn't need to move her chopsticks at all, which made her feel very flattered. Qin Sheng was not jealous at all. Who would be jealous of his girlfriend? He was secretly happy in his heart. After dinner, Qin Sheng and Lin Su did not stay for long before they prepared to go home. The old lady was a little too tired today. Moreover, her mood swings were too big. The doctor had already told her to rest early. Otherwise, her body would definitely not be able to take it. Everyone naturally followed the doctor's advice. Before leaving, the old lady held Lin Su's hand and said reluctantly, Su, if you have time, come to visit me more often. You don't have to worry about whether Sheng or has time or not. This is your home. Since the old lady had said so, it could be seen how satisfied she was with Lin Su. Lin Su naturally nodded and said, Okay, Grandma, rest early. I'll come to see you another day. Good, the old lady said happily. Then she said to Qin Sheng, don't bully Su, or I'll teach you a lesson. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, Grandma, how would I dare to do that? After the old lady went upstairs to rest, Qin Sheng and Lin Su left the old-style, foreign-style house. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun walked them to the door. Lin Su had been treated so well today. After Qin Sheng and Lin Su left, Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun did not hurry to go in. Wu Yajun would go back to Beijing tomorrow, so Zhu Qingwen would stay in the old-style, foreign-style house and chat with her tonight. I can see that the old lady is very satisfied with Lin Su, Wu Yajun said with a smile. The nanny came out and poured them 2 glasses of water and some fruits. Zhu Qingwen replied with a faint smile, As long as it's Sheng Er's girlfriend, the old lady will be very satisfied. We may want Qin Sheng and Ruyu to be together. Even though we know Sheng has a girlfriend, we will still think so and may feel a little regretful. But the old lady is different from us. She thinks that Sheng has suffered too much over these years. As long as he is safe and happy in the future, he should find a wife who treats him well. Previously, the old lady didn't know that Sheng has a girlfriend, so she took the initiative to matchmake them. Today, the old lady's attitude from beginning to end has explained everything. So we'd better not say anything wrong in front of the old lady, or we will definitely be scolded. Alas, it makes sense, considering the current situation of the Qin family. If Sheng really wants to take over, Ruyu is obviously the best choice. Even if there is nothing else, whoever marries a girl like Ruyu will gain a lot. Although Wu Yajun didn't talk much in ordinary days, and most of the time she just took care of the family, she was not an ordinary housewife. She used to work in the system, but later she quit for her husband. Zhu Qingwen, of course, knew what Wu Yajun was thinking. She used to think the same way, but now it was useless to think about it. She smiled bitterly and said, "Maybe our Zhu family is not so lucky. Ryu has met Lin Su today. According to Ryu's character, it is impossible for them to be together in the future. Let's give up this idea." In fact, Lin Su is very good. She is beautiful and elegant, not worse than Ryu. Sheng has a good taste. Wu Yajun also felt relieved and said with a smile. Zhu Qingwen also nodded and said, "As long as Sheng likes her and treats her well, then we don't have to worry too much." That's right. So, the old lady thinks clearly. Wu Yajun echoed. This matter, at least on the Zhu family's side, was decided by the old lady's clear stand today. It was estimated that no one dared to mention this topic in front of the old lady in the future. On the way back to Lujiazui, Lin Su seemed to be in a good mood. She leaned in Qin Sheng's arms and kept saying all kinds of good things about the old lady, her aunt, and uncle today. It was rare to see her so happy. Her smile was really like a spring breeze, so Qin Sheng was even happier than her. "In the future, if I'm not in Shanghai, you can take care of Grandma for me. I can see that Grandma likes you very much. She will be very happy if you go there," Qin Sheng said with a smile, holding Lin Su in his arms. Lin Su was very obedient and said, "Well, I take time to go there 2 or 3 times a week. I can also see that Grandma loves you more than anyone else. In fact, I am very clear that my mother died in an accident, which hurt Grandma deeply. So no matter to my sister or to me, Grandma loves and takes care of us very much. Maybe it is because I've been wandering outside these years. Grandma always feels that she owes me. So after I came back, she tried her best to make it up to me. So did little aunt and uncle," Qin Sheng said lightly. The better they were to him, the more Qin Sheng felt that he did not know how to repay them. Lin Su hugged Qin Sheng tightly and said, "Everything is past. Isn't it good now? Then think about me again. Am I very happy?" Of course, Lin Su was talking about the family atmosphere in her family. Qin Sheng kissed Lin Su's forehead gently and said, "It's okay. You have me. You have me too." Lin Su raised her head and kissed Qin Sheng's lips lightly. Qin Sheng laughed out loud. After this thing was over, he could go to Hangzhou with peace of mind. In this trip to Hangzhou, he must solve the big problem of Third Master Wu. Otherwise, he would be in a difficult situation. 2 days had passed. After Third Master Wu rejected Qin Sheng, he officially started to take action. Many people were transferred from Zhejiang, including Mr. Chu Sikong, who had seriously injured Chong Baji. "Sikong, this time you only have one target, which is Chong Baji. So far, only you can be his opponent." Third Master Wu's villa in Shanghai was much more lively than a few days ago. Because there were many more people, he not only had to deal with Qin Sheng, but also to prevent Qin Sheng from taking the initiative to attack. Chu Sikong, who was wearing navy blue coarse linen clothes and cloth shoes, looked quite sage-like. He replied, "Last time, I had the advantage of time and place. If I fight with Chong Baji again, I may not be able to escape unscathed, but I will definitely try my best at that time." Third Master Wu said disapprovingly, "Over these years, many masters have been defeated by you. I believe in your strength, but I definitely won't let you fight until the last moment. Our target is only Qin Sheng. Third Master, I still feel that it is a bit abrupt to come to Shanghai this time, Chu Sikong said. This was also the reason why Chu Sikong, who was inseparable from Third Master Wu, did not come to Shanghai these days. When Third Master Wu was still in Shanghai, a master had calculated for Third Master Wu and said that the feng shui of Shanghai was incompatible with him, so it was not suitable for him to stay in Shanghai to develop. However, at that time, Third Master Wu had developed smoothly and did not listen to the master's advice. It was not until something happened later that he suddenly realized it. However, so many years had passed, and Third Master Wu had already forgotten about it. Moreover, he thought that he should have avoided the disaster of that year. But returning to Shanghai was still his biggest, long-cherished wish. This time, Third Master Wu rejected Qin Sheng and invested heavily in the alliance of the Yin family. So he forced Chu Sikong to come to Shanghai, and Chu Sikong had no choice. Third Master Wu was very unhappy as he said, "Sikong, you don't have to worry about this. You just do what you should do. I have my own considerations for other things." Not far away, Yang Ding and the beautiful woman in Cheongsam were standing together. The beautiful woman in Cheongsam had some feelings for Yang Ding. Moreover, they were about the same age and had done many tasks together before. It was just that Yang Ding did not know that. That was also the reason why she had been very angry when he had flirted with her. It was because Yang Ding had been there. However, Yang Ding did not think about the relationship between him and Qin Sheng at this moment. He was only thinking about the relationship between his foster father and his big brother. In the afternoon, his big brother had come to his foster father again and said that he wanted to help. Unexpectedly, his foster father refused to see him again and took back all of his rights in Shanghai. Obviously, his big brother was hurt. Yang Ding did not know what to do. Third Master Wu definitely did not know that this was the foreshadowing of his death in Shanghai. Chapter 692. A key figure. Sometimes, you had to believe in fate. Some people were so tough that they could get through the storm safely. Some people were so weak that they could be uprooted at the slightest sign of trouble. Old Master Qin was an expert in this aspect. He had experienced too many ups and downs, as well as life and death. He had told the fortune of many big shots and determined their fates. Old Master Qin had always blamed himself for what happened to the Qin family more than 20 years ago. He thought it was God's punishment for him. Although Old Master Qin was born in Beijing, he grew up in a turbulent era. He was taught by two extraordinary masters. He had been wandering all his life and seldom stayed in Beijing. In the end, he chose to die in a foreign place instead of returning to his roots. The story behind this was not worth telling to outsiders. In short, most of what Old Master Qin did in the latter half of his life was to accumulate good karma for the descendants of the Qin family. Even people like Old Master Qin believed in fate. Why didn't Third Master Wu believe in fate? Why did he insist on fighting against God? After Third Master Wu chose the Yin family, no matter how he dealt with Qin Sheng, he was ready to cooperate with the Yin family. They would set up a joint venture group with the Yin family. They would merge all the businesses in Shanghai with the companies under the Yin family. At the same time, they would exchange shares with another high-quality company under the Yin family. This was one of the concrete steps of the alliance. Therefore, from now on, Third Master Wu was tied to the Yin family. If something happened to the Yin family, Third Master Wu would definitely suffer. If something happened to Third Master Wu, the Yin family would also be affected. Judging from the situation, Third Master Wu was really ready to go all the way. However, no matter whether it was the Yin family or Xueku and Gu Yongning, they were very quiet these 2 days. There was no movement at all. No one knew what they were planning. Bao Fan kept an eye on them at all times in case they were attacked suddenly. If these guys made a move, it would definitely not be easy. In the early morning, before Qin Sheng prepared to go to Hangzhou, he went to the company first. Chang Baji and Bao Fan had also arrived. However, they would not follow Qin Sheng to Shanghai. Instead, they would stay in Shanghai to take charge of the overall situation. For this trip to Hangzhou, Qin Sheng only brought Yang Daniu with him. After all, There were still Yujback and the rest in Hangzhou. As soon as Qin Sheng arrived at the company, Zhongshan walked into the office and said, "The Beijing company has dealt with Fang Fei and Zhao Chengel. Fang Fei has been transferred back to Beijing, suspended from her position and suspended from her salary. She was not fired directly. I guess someone has stepped forward to protect her. As for Zhao Chengel, you can choose to fire him. We'll make arrangements for him." Qin Sheng nodded and asked in reply, "Well, it's within my expectation. Didn't they say that they would send more people to Shanghai?" Zhongshan shook his head and said, "Not yet. But even if there is, it will not be mentioned in this internal document. Let's wait for the news quietly. It depends on Master Qin's strength." He replied, "Let's not talk about this anymore. I'll go to Hangzhou in a while. You'll be in charge of the company. I'm afraid that they'll use a new one if this method doesn't work. Let's keep in touch if anything happens." "Okay, I got it." Zhongshan chuckled. After Chang Baji and Bao Fan arrived, Zhongshan went out for a meeting. Chang Baji said that he had something to talk to Bao Fan about. When they met, he went straight to the point. "We found an interesting person. Maybe we can make use of him." "Who is it?" Qin Sheng asked curiously. It was rare to see Chang Baji so excited. Bao Fan said slowly, "Third Master Wu's eldest adopted son, Wu Yongchuan. A chess piece abandoned by Third Master Wu, but I can make use of him." Wu Yongchuan. Qin Sheng lowered his head and thought about this name. Bao Fan lit a cigarette. He did not know why he was a little addicted to smoking recently. He continued, "Wu Yongchuan's father used to be a famous business tycoon in the Bund. When Third Master Wu was in Shanghai, the Wu family helped him. Later, Wu Yongchuan's father committed suicide after an accident. In order to repay the Wu family's kindness, Third Master Wu adopted Wu Yongchuan as his son. What's more, the Wu family also has a lot of connections and resources in Shanghai. Third Master Wu had no children, so he had always trained Wu Yongchuan as a successor. After all, they all had the surname Wu. What's more, Third Master Wu always remembered the Wu family's kindness. Originally, everything was good. Wu Yongchuan also worked hard and was very famous in Ninghong. However, as Third Master Wu had more and more adopted sons, Wu Yongchuan's power was gradually divided. Moreover, it was unknown whether he was too arrogant or something else, but Third Master Wu started to beat him on purpose. Wu Yongchuan gradually had resentment in his heart. In the end, he completely broke out, Bao Fan said with a smile. This story used to be very interesting. Third Master Wu was seriously injured because of this, and he was also laughed at by many people. Qin Sheng listened with great interest. He also guessed the result. He smiled and said, "So, Wu Yongchuan betrayed Third Master Wu? If it was just a betrayal, it would be okay. However, Wu Yongchuan's ambition was bigger than we imagined. He directly contacted external forces and rose up in revolt. He cooperated with external forces and almost forced Third Master Wu to death. If Third Master Wu had not had the support of a big shot at that time, he would have almost been killed by Wu Yongchuan and the big shot who used to be quite powerful in Hangzhou." Bao Fan's story was very vivid. Chang Baji continued, "Wu Yongchuan failed later, but Third Master Wu did not kill him because he owed the Wu family a favor. He was the only son of the Wu family. If he killed him, he would not have the face to face the Wu family. So he sent Wu Yongchuan to Shanghai and gave him some resources, leaving him to fend for himself. During these years, they only met 2 or 3 times a year. They were almost like strangers. After Third Master Wu came to Shanghai this time, did he see Wu Yongchuan?" Qin Sheng asked curiously. This was also the fulcrum that he cared about whether Wu Yongchuan could be used or not. Chang Baji continued, "I heard that Third Master Wu met Wu Yongchuan on the day he came to Shanghai. After that, they did not contact each other anymore. Wu Yongchuan looked for Third Master Wu many times. He wanted to continue working for Third Master Wu and did not want to live such a muddle-headed life anymore. However, Third Master Wu refused to see him all the time. These 2 days, he even took back all of Wu Yongchuan's rights in Shanghai, because Third Master Wu started to cooperate with the Yin family. So, Wu Yongchuan is full of resentment and anger now. These days, he has been drinking to drown his sorrows. He even scolded Third Master Wu behind his back many times. I am afraid that Third Master was already known it. This was similar to what Qin Sheng had guessed. Given Third Master Wu's character, it was impossible for him to continue to trust Wu Yongchuan. The reason why he did not kill Wu Yongchuan back then was that he owed the Wu family a favor and did not want to be criticized by others. Once bitten by a snake, twice shy, Third Master Wu could not blame him. Wu Yongchuan, who was a traitor, deserved it. However, if this kind of person did it once, there would be a second time. Qin Sheng smiled happily and said, "So, you think you can make use of him?" Bao Fan said solemnly, "This kind of person does not want to repay Third Master Wu's kindness. What he wants is only power. So, if we promise him enough benefits, for example, after Third Master Wu dies, we will support him to take over half of Third Master Wu's industries. Do you think he will agree?" Qin Sheng said without hesitation, "He will definitely agree." Bao Fan also thought so. He nodded and said, "So, I'm going to start a contact with Yongchuan recently. Young Master, as long as you persuade the two families in Hangzhou, at that time, we can attack Third Master Wu for both sides. Basically, he will die. Not to mention that we don't persuade them. As long as Third Master Wu dies, those people will definitely hit him when he is down. Who doesn't want a free cake?" Qin Sheng laughed out loud. These were all common sense. Who would go against benefits? At that time, they would only fight until their heads were broken and bleeding. Bao Fan said confidently, "Then I will wait for your good news, young master." Qin Sheng squinted and said, "I will also wait for your good news." He had already given Third Master Wu a chance, but Third Master Wu did not cherish it. Not only did he choose to refuse, but he also threw himself into the arms of the Yin family. He was ready to fight with Qin Sheng to death. In this case, he should not blame Qin Sheng. After talking about this, Chang Baji and Bao Fan left the World Financial Center. Recently, apart from keeping an eye on the Yin family, the most important thing for them was to deal with Wu Yongchuan. Qin Sheng drove to Hangzhou with Yang Dainyu. This was the second time for Qin Sheng to return to Hangzhou after half a year. Last time, Qin Sheng was driven out by several forces together. He was like a stray dog and was extremely embarrassed. In the end, he almost died in Huangmei town. Fortunately, he survived the disaster and luckily escaped. Today, Qin Sheng returned to Hangzhou again. However, he went back with the attitude of a winner. He took the initiative to attack and collect debts from those former enemies. Of course, the biggest creditor was Third Master Wu. In order not to let anyone know that he returned to Hangzhou, Qin Sheng left Shanghai in a low-key manner this time. Except for Yang Dainyu, he did not bring anyone else. Qin Sheng knew that the Yin family must be keeping a close eye on his whereabouts. After all, a big battle was in front of them. Whoever had the first-hand information would be able to seize the first opportunity. Therefore, Qin Sheng's 3 cars circled around Shanghai several times. In the end, after confirming that no one was following them, he changed into an inconspicuous Volvo in Songjiang and continued to go to Shanghai. On the way, Qin Sheng was very calm. He did not have too many sentiments and sorrows. He just planned what to do when he arrived in Hangzhou. After all, he was completely responsible for the affairs in Hangzhou. Dainyu, have you been to Hangzhou before? Since there was only Yang Dainyu, Qin Sheng could only chat with him. Otherwise, he would be suffocated to death if he did not talk for 2 or 3 hours. Yang Dainyu replied with a smile, "Brother Qin, I am from Hangzhou. Do you think I have been to Hangzhou?" After hearing Yang Dainyu's words, Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He almost forgot about this. Yang Dainyu was the disciple of Chang Baji's senior brother. Tianmu Mountain was originally in Hangzhou. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "I almost forgot about this." Following that, Yang Dainyu said, "However, Hangzhou is the place where I feel sad. I had a passionate relationship there before. I almost eloped with that girl. Who knew that she would abandon me in the end? Alas, you have been in love before?" Qin Sheng made fun of Yang Dainyu on purpose. Yang Dainyu immediately became anxious. Anyway, when he was alone with Qin Sheng, Yang Daniu only treated Qin Sheng as a friend. He said impatiently, "Brother Qin, you are looking down on me. Don't be fooled by my looks. I'm a good talker. You don't know how many girls like me, but I rejected them all in the end." Qin Sheng laughed out loud and said, "Forget it." The two joked with each other all the way. Yang Daniu talked about what he had done outside these years, and Qin Sheng also talked about what he had experienced in these years. Time passed unconsciously. Soon, they arrived in Hangzhou. After entering Hangzhou, Yang Daniu asked, "Brother Qin, where are we going now?" Qin Sheng suddenly felt a little sad. He had already thought about what to do after returning to Hangzhou, which was to visit Gu Qingyang. Chapter 693. Go on. Gu Xiaobo had a conscience. He did not let Gu Qingyang die in the wild in a foreign place. In the end, he collected Gu Qingyang's body and took him back to Hangzhou to bury him. Qin Sheng should have gone to Hangzhou earlier to pay his respects to Gu Qingyang. However, he had no time to go back to Hangzhou because of too many things. Now that he was finally back, Qin Sheng naturally chose to visit Gu Qingyang as soon as possible. Moreover, Qin Sheng had not taken revenge for Gu Qingyang at that time. He felt ashamed to see Gu Qingyang. Now that Gu Xiaobo had died, Qin Sheng could give Gu Qingyang an explanation. As for the others, he could pay them back slowly. Qin Sheng had a deep impression of Gu Qingyang and thought highly of him. Especially on the night of the accident, Gu Qingyang had tried his best to buy time for Qin Sheng to escape from Huangmei town. However, Gu Qingyang had died there. Qin Sheng was very sad at that time. His heart was like dead ashes. Only this kind of choice was the most torturous. If he stayed, he might die together with Gu Qingyang. If he left, although he was still alive, it was difficult for him to get over the hurdle in his heart. He always felt that he had abandoned his brother to drag out an ignoble existence. However, if he did not leave, Gu Qingyang would be more sad. At that time, Gu Qingyang, who was in despair, threatened Qin Sheng with death. He felt that if Qin Sheng did not leave, he would really die there. To Gu Qingyang, loyalty and commitment were more important than his life. His original task was to protect Qin Sheng. Consequently, as long as Qin Sheng could leave this place alive, it would be the biggest reward for him. As for what would happen to Qin Sheng, he had never considered it. Gu Qingyang was a real man. It was a pity that he died like this. How could Qin Sheng not be sad? He often regretted that when Gu Qingyang was still by his side, he did not have a good chat with him or drink with him. It was a pity that he would not have such a chance again. Looking at Hangzhou, which was close at hand, Qin Sheng murmured in his heart, "Qingyang, I'm back. I'm back to see you. I won't let you down. I will see the scenery that you can't see in the future. I will definitely stand higher and go further. Otherwise, I will feel sorry for the life you gave me." Seeing that Qin Sheng was in a daze, Yang Daniu was a little confused and asked, "Brother Qin, what's wrong?" It was not until then that Qin Sheng came to his senses and said, "It's okay. Let's go and see Qingyang first. He should have been waiting for a long time." Gu Qingyang had been buried by Gu Xiaobo in a cemetery with good feng shui in the suburbs of Hangzhou. In the beginning, Gu Xiaobo had placed Gu Qingyang's urn in the funeral parlor. It was not until the Yin family had gotten the money that they bought a cemetery for Gu Qingyang. Therefore, Gu Xiaobo was kind. Chang Baji had gone to see Gu Qingyang before, but he did not know where Chang Baji had gotten the address. As a result, Qin Sheng knew where Gu Qingyang was buried. After Yang Daniu heard Qin Sheng's decision, he admired Qin Sheng more or less. This man had gone to see Qin Sheng as soon as he returned to Hangzhou, which indicated that he valued friendship and righteousness. He really took Gu Qingyang seriously. It was no wonder that Senior Uncle Chang had been following him all these years. Yang Daniu nodded silently. Then he asked for the specific address and headed there. Yang Daniu had known about Gu Qingyang's death a long time ago. He liked this quiet junior brother very much. He was not talkative but smart. No matter what he was asked to do, he would not complain. His master also liked Gu Qingyang very much. Therefore, he had asked Senior Uncle Chang to take him away from Mount Tianmu. However, No one had expected that they would never be able to go back after leaving this place. It was a pity. Life was like this, full of surprises and surprises. After more than an hour, they finally arrived at the cemetery in the western suburbs of Hangzhou. On their way there, Qin Sheng bought some fruits and flowers. After entering the cemetery, he also bought some things for worshipping. According to the location that Chang Baji had told him, he found Gu Qingyang's cemetery smoothly after asking the staff. When Qin Sheng and Yang Daniu stood in front of Gu Qingyang's tombstone, they both felt a little depressed. The tombstone was very simple. There were only a few words, Gu Qingyang's tomb. The black and white photo was a photo of his daily life. Maybe it was saved in Gu Xiaobo's phone. There was nothing in front of the tombstone. Maybe no one had come to worship for a long time. Maybe, except for Gu Xiaobo and Chang Baji, no one would know who this young man who had died young was. He stayed here alone, which was somewhat pitiful and made people feel sorry for him. After Qin Sheng and Yang Daniu arranged the fruits and flowers, they started the worshipping process. Yang Daniu squatted on the ground, burning incense and lighting paper. Qin Sheng stared at the tombstone in a daze. Is it worth it? Qin Sheng murmured to himself. It seemed that he was asking Gu Qingyang, but he would not get an answer. In today's society, most people were selfish, let alone risking their lives for others. However, Gu Qingyang was exactly the opposite. He was such a person. He would exchange his life for another's. He would die bravely. Qin Sheng was lucky to live on. Qingyang, I'm back to see you. Forgive me for coming to see you so late. There are so many things I want to say to you, but I don't know what to say. I feel that it's all nonsense. After all, these words can't exchange for your life. I owe you in this life. Moreover, you didn't give me a chance to pay it back. It's a pity that I met you too late in this life. We couldn't be brothers for more than a few days. If there is a next life, we should know each other earlier. I can only pay it back slowly in the next life. Qin Sheng said emotionally. He looked very sad. This was destined to make him feel guilty for the rest of his life. Gu Qingyang used this way to make Qin Sheng remember him for the rest of his life. Yang Daniu also said slowly, Qingyang, second senior brother, also came to see you. I didn't expect that when we meet again, we would be separated by life and death. If I had known this earlier, I would have treated you better and not bullied you to do so many heavy jobs. You are destined to have a hard life. Maybe it's better for you to get rid of it earlier so that you won't have to suffer for the rest of your life. To be honest, second senior brother misses you. The two of them chatted with each other and talked about the little things about Gu Qingyang. In the photo, Gu Qingyang smiled very happily. This should be one of the few photos in which he smiled. No matter how happily some people smiled on the surface, maybe they were more gloomy than anyone else. No matter how dull and silent some people were, their hearts were like sunshine. Anyone who was around them would feel warm and comfortable. Gu Qingyang belonged to this kind of people. Qin Sheng continued saying, Qingyang, I have avenged you. Gu Xiaobo is dead. Maybe you have seen him now. Maybe he is apologizing to you. I don't know whether you will forgive him or not. Maybe you will, but I can't forgive him. Nothing in this world is more painful than being stabbed in the back by one's brother. On the other side, Yang Daniu said, Qingyang, don't forgive that guy. There are too many good people in this world. You embrace this world with kindness, but it is full of malice in return. Consequently, most people live in a way that even they hate themselves. What Yang Daniu said made Qin Sheng want to give him 120 thumbs up. People who had experienced the vicissitudes of life were really different. Qin Sheng looked at Yang Daniu subconsciously and gave him an appreciative look. Yang Daniu shook his head and said with a smile, Alas, I'm talking nonsense. I don't understand the meaning of life. Qin Sheng did not say anything. He turned around and looked at Yang Daniu. He continued saying, Gu Xiaobo is dead. Next, it is others' turn to pay the debt. Yin Xiaozong, third Master Wu, and the old monk will all pay the debt. Yang Daniu also said, Qingyang, don't worry. I will not leave until I have avenged you. I will make those who bully our master pay the price. The paper had been burned. Qin Sheng and Yang Daniu had finished talking. They stood up slowly. Sometimes Qin Sheng would think that if Gu Qingyang were still alive, How wonderful it would be if he were still alive. Based on his loyalty and bravery that night in Huang, Mei Town, and Qin Sheng's current identity and background, Gu Qingyang's life would be wonderful. Gu Xiaobo would envy him for the rest of his life. Originally, if the two of them had still followed Qin Sheng, they would have a broad stage now. They would not lack anything. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Qingyang, we don't have much to say. It is time for us to go. I will come to see you next time. It is because your place is too lonely. You need someone to talk to you." He had already made up his mind to set up a charity foundation in Gu Qingyang's name to support those who needed help, such as children, women, and the elderly. In this way, people would come to pay their respects to Gu Qingyang often. He would not be so lonely and would be remembered by others. Perhaps this was another way to let Gu Qingyang continue to live. Yang Dainyu said in the end, "Qingyang, let's go. If you miss your master, go to your master's dream. He must miss you too." They came in a hurry and left in a hurry. It was destined that the dead could not come back to life. Therefore, it was better to leave some traces in this world. At least in this way, it could prove that you had been to this world. Qin Sheng and Yang Dainyu left in this way. When they were walking out, a pigeon landed on Gu Qingyang's tombstone slowly and chirped. Qin Sheng looked back subconsciously and found that the pigeon was also looking at him. Qin Sheng chuckled and thought, that might be Gu Qingyang. When Qin Sheng and Yang Dainyu returned to the downtown area again, it was already evening. The setting sun dyed half of the sky red, making the entire Hangzhou city look like it was sprinkled with various colors. The passers-by stopped and watched the setting sun on the horizon. However, they did not know who was watching them. Brother Wu, Ba He, and the others already knew that Qin Sheng would come to Hangzhou today. They were on standby and waiting to welcome him. Wei Li also knew that. He even arranged a banquet to welcome Qin Sheng. The dinner was by the West Lake. Wei Li found a place. He said that it was a restaurant opened by a friend. The environment and dishes were not bad. Qin Sheng did not have any requirements. He just followed Wei Li's arrangement. After all, Qin Sheng had stayed in Hangzhou for a long time. He still had feelings for this city. Looking at this familiar city, Qin Sheng was a little touched. At that time, the biggest motivation in his life was Lin Su. Now, he had more motivation. Half an hour later, Qin Sheng finally arrived at the dinner place. Wei Li had been waiting for a long time. Brother Wu, Ba He, and the others had also arrived. They were waiting for Qin Sheng at the door. When he saw Qin Sheng get off the car, Wei Li instantly smiled. Unconsciously, he had already boarded the big ship of the Qin family. Chapter 694. Getting to the point, there were many kind of playboys. Some of them had nothing to do all day and only knew how to spend money to pick up girls. They seemed to be living a free and easy life, but in fact, most of them were not capable. Some of them were well-behaved. Their whole life had been laid out, and they did not need to forge ahead. They only needed to hold on to their ancestral property and develop steadily. There were also some who were extremely ambitious and dissatisfied with their current situation. They wanted to see the scenery at a higher place, especially thinking of ways to surpass their parents and prove their ability and value. They would never think that their hard work was not recognized because they were born into a good family. For people like them, being born into a good family would only make them work harder. Obviously, Wei Li belonged to the last kind. Otherwise, with the wealth accumulated by his parents' generation, even if he spent it hard every day, it would take him several lifetimes to spend it all. Of course, the premise was that he did not get involved in gambling and drugs. Otherwise, no matter how rich his family property was, he could not afford to lose it. If Wei Li's identity and background were not mentioned, with his shrewdness and scheming, he would be more like a small figure who would seek personal gain everywhere. As long as there was any help that could help him move up, he would not miss it. Therefore, this kind of person was somewhat scary. Otherwise, Qin Sheng would not have treated Wei Li as a friend on equal footing in the end, from not taking him seriously at the beginning. Qin Sheng had an intuition that Wei Li might not be simple in the future. However, Qin Sheng was still very clear that he and Wei Li could do business, talk about cooperation, and call each other brothers. but they were definitely not brothers who trusted each other wholeheartedly, because the premise of their relationship was always interests. After Qin Sheng got out of the car, Wei Li walked up quickly. He directly hugged Qin Sheng's shoulder and said very enthusiastically, "Lao Qin, you're finally here." Ha ha. In Beijing, Qin Sheng could be regarded as half a local bully host. However, in Wei Li's eyes, Qin Sheng was the local bully. After arriving in Hangzhou, no matter how long Qin Sheng had stayed in Hangzhou and what he had done, he was the real local bully host. Qin Sheng's power here was definitely not as great as his. "Lao Wei, we haven't seen each other for such a short time, and you have become so fat. The food you eat after you go home is too good, isn't it?" Qin Sheng teased him with a smile. The two of them seemed to be very familiar with each other. In fact, they were very clear about their relationship. However, during this period of time in Hangzhou, Qin Sheng had to make use of Wei Li's influence. Consequently, he definitely acted like he was very familiar with Wei Li. Of course, Wei Li was also very willing to do so. In this way, others would go back and guess the relationship between him and Qin Sheng, as well as the cooperation between their two families. However, Wei Li and his father had recently had some disagreements regarding the Qin family's current situation. The father and son were in different positions, so the problems they considered were different. What Wei Li's father considered was that currently, they could not be too close to the Qin family. Once Qin Sheng fell, they might be implicated meaninglessly. This was not a good thing for the current Wei family. After all, the Wei family was currently having a smooth sailing life. They had gotten close to the famous tycoon in Hangzhou. Their business and investments were very good. There was no need for them to cause trouble for themselves. However, what Wei Li was considering was that the person he had invested in was Qin Sheng. Based on his judgment of the Qin family, even if Qin Chang'an fell, the Qin family would not fall. Qin Sheng would definitely take over like this, and then the whole Qin family would be reborn from the ashes. By then, the two families could cooperate deeply. The Wei family would not have to bet everything on one person. Moreover, Qin Sheng still had the unfathomable Zhu family behind him. Wei Li's father was still so insistent. He was not willing to take risks for unknown things. After all, this was not a child's play. There would be a lot of disturbances involved in the middle. However, Wei Li was also very insistent on his decision. In the end, the old man could not dissuade this son of his. He could only slightly compromise and promise to help him in some things. However, he would control himself. Once Wei Li crossed the line, he would come out to stop him. Wei Li did not have any objection to this. His father had experienced so many things and was more experienced and intuitive than him. Of course, he was willing to let his father take the helm. Wei Li replied with a smile, "I have no choice. Recently, my wife thinks that I am too thin. She's trying hard to feed me and make me fat. I'm also forced to do this. I used to be a man with an 8-pack. Now, I'm a lump of fat." Qin Sheng laughed out loud and said, "Then I am much stronger than you. I still have an 8-pack. Go right now." "You can't chat like this," Wei Li said deliberately. The two of them were so open and natural with each other. It seemed that their relationship was far better than when they were in Beijing. If Han Su saw this, he could not help but ask Qin Sheng when he and Wei Li were so close. During this period of time, Wei Li had put in a lot of effort for Qin Sheng. Of course, Qin Sheng had to treat Wei Li well. Otherwise, no one would work hard for him. In the following days in Hangzhou, he had to rely on Wei Li in all aspects. He had to maintain this relationship. After the greetings, Wei Li pulled Qin Sheng's arm and said, "Let's stop talking. It's too hot outside. Let's go in and talk." At this time, Qin Sheng looked at the others. Brother Wu, Ba He, and Wang Jian were in charge of everything in Hangzhou, including the contact with Wei Li. During this period, they were already familiar with Wei Li. That was why he let them accompany him today. They just greeted each other, and it did not say much. They would talk in detail later. Then they walked in side by side. The dinner was creative dishes. Wei Li did not choose Hangzhou cuisine. After all, Qin Sheng had stayed in Hangzhou for so long. If he was not a native of Jiangsu and Zhejiang, he would probably have been tired of Hangzhou cuisine. In addition, when they were eating in Beijing, Every time they went out, Qin Sheng would choose spicy dishes. That was why Wei Li chose this place. From this, it could be seen that Wei Li was not a simple person. He had a family background, ability, shrewdness, and was very meticulous. After the main guest sat down, Wei Li smiled and asked, "Want a drink? If I don't drink, how can I still eat? Besides, we haven't seen each other for so long. How can I not drink?" Qin Sheng responded very straightforwardly, giving Wei Li enough face. During this period, the others had become familiar with Wei Li. When Wei Li was with them, he was very arrogant. Whether it was talking or doing things, he was very straightforward. However, today they finally saw another side of Wei Li. This was the problem of status. When Wei Li heard this, he was very happy. He immediately asked what they wanted to drink. Qin Sheng said that he was risking his life to accompany a gentleman today. Whatever he said, he would do. In the end, Wei Li did not hesitate to order Mao Tai. Before dinner, Qin Sheng and Wei Li chatted very casually. They asked about the recent movements of the students in the Tsinghua University seminar, such as whose company had been listed on the stock market, a certain student's project had received financing, and who had traveled abroad recently. They were all trivial things in life and gossip, which could be regarded as getting closer to each other. At the same time, they were also sorting out their own relationships. "Lao Qin, how does it feel to go back to Hangzhou again?" When the wine was almost drunk, Wei Li suddenly asked. After all, when Qin Sheng left, he was very embarrassed. Qin Sheng had thought about this question long ago. He said casually, "It's okay. I don't have too many feelings. I just want to have a good talk with those people at that time." Wei Li, who was slightly drunk, imitated Qin Sheng's tone and said, "Then you are much better than me. If it were me, I would definitely think, you guys who look down on me, I am finally back. You didn't expect it, did you? Are you regretting it? You want to apologize to me? No way. Just wait for me to deal with you." Wei Li, who was slightly drunk, imitated Qin Sheng's tone and said. Qin Sheng was not angry at all. Most people would think so, but many people were not willing to say it out. Naturally, he had this kind of thought in his heart. However, after seeing the scenery at a higher level, he was not so narrow-minded. Qin Sheng looked at Wei Li and said, "What's the use of regretting? What's the use of apologizing or not? If regretting and apologizing are useful, that person's life in this life is too sullen." "You're right. I also think so. This F***ket up life. Come on, let's drink," Wei Li echoed. After Qin Sheng finished his glass of wine, he asked meaningfully, "Do you know how Chowda is doing now?" Wei Li was not surprised that Qin Sheng would ask about Chowda. Back in Hangzhou, Qin Sheng worked for Chowda. He could be regarded as half a talent scout for Qin Sheng. Now that Qin Sheng was back as the king, he would definitely ask about Chowda. However, what Wei Li did not know was that there was another story behind it. That was, Qin Sheng already knew that Chowda was originally a chess piece of Qin Chang'an. Those things in Hangzhou were actually arranged. Otherwise, how could they be related to him? After all, in this world, not every big shot had a discerning eye, and not every undiscovered gold could meet a bowl. Otherwise, how could there be so many talented people in history who eventually died of depression and mediocrity? Wei Li explained casually, "You're talking about Mr. Chow. Alas, since what happened to you last time, Mr. Chow has been in a bad situation. After being strongly suppressed by Third Master Wu, he has sold most of his businesses. Now, only the catering business is left. He has made some other investments. I heard this from others. I'm not very clear about the details." Qin Sheng was very clear that Qin Chang'an did not help Chowda not because Qin Chang'an could not care about Chowda, but because he wanted Qin Sheng to deal with this matter. Qin Sheng was very grateful to Chowda. No matter whether he did these things because of Qin Chang'an or not, at least when he was with Chowda, Chowda had nothing to say to him. Therefore, Qin Sheng would still return the favor when it was necessary. Qin Sheng nodded slightly and said, "It seems that the situation is not very good." "Why? Do you want to help Mr. Chow?" Wei Li asked with a smile. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "It's not really help. I just want to return the favor. Moreover, when the time comes, it doesn't matter who I give it to. It's better to give it to my own people. Don't you think so?" "That's true." Wei Li did not refute. The dinner was over very soon. Naturally, Wei did not intend to let Qin Sheng go. He said with a smile, "Shall we continue to drink in another place?" "Where?" Qin Sheng said, as the guest followed the host. Wei replied directly, "Queen, an old friend is waiting for us there." Originally, Qin Sheng did not want to go there. It would be fine to change to a quiet place. However, when he heard this, he was curious and asked, "Who?" "The young master of the Dugu family." Wei did not keep Qin Sheng guessing. He answered with a smile. Qin Sheng instantly understood what Wei meant. Wei was really not simple. He had just returned to Hangzhou for a short time, and he began to get to the point directly. Chapter 695. Adjusting his mentality, Wei Li was very pragmatic. He knew Qin Sheng's situation very well. Time was the most precious thing for Qin Sheng now. There was a mess in Shanghai. The Yin family alone was enough to give Qin Sheng a headache, not to mention those rich playboys in Beijing who had nothing better to do. Even Third Master Wu had gone to Shanghai to encircle Qin Sheng. One could imagine Qin Sheng's situation. Qin Sheng had told him that he would go back to Hangzhou secretly this time. No one knew. He hoped to finish the negotiation in the shortest time. After hearing this, Wei definitely would not waste time. He tried his best to help Qin Sheng to finish the negotiation. Therefore, tonight was not just a welcome dinner for Qin Sheng. After all, they were already familiar with each other. It was not a big deal for them to have a meal. The second round was more important. It was a relatively low-key family. However, its power was not much worse than that of Third Master Wu and the old monk. However, the current situation of the Dugu family was not very good. In particular, the in-laws of the woman who had become a phoenix had some problems. Now, there were rumors everywhere. The outcome was still unknown. However, the Dugu family had to prepare for a rainy day. The reason why the Dugu family could develop so fast in the past few years was because of the resources and strong support from the other side. It was exactly because Wei knew this that he took the initiative to find Dugu Qingning. Wei gave him a big picture and asked him to make a choice. As for what Wei had said, Qin Sheng did not know. However, he was sure that Wei had bragged a lot about him. Of course, many of the things he had said were true. For example, the relationship between Qin Sheng and Xue Qingyan. Xue Qingyan's father had a great influence in Zhujiang. Although he had retired for many years, his disciples were still all over the officialdom. Moreover, her brother had been rooted in Zhujiang and had been promoted to Shanghai a few years ago. Second was Qin Sheng's uncle. Even Dugu Qingning knew very well how powerful Wei was. Wei had a bright future ahead of him. Qin Sheng naturally knew who it was. He said in a low voice, "Dugu Qingning, haha, old acquaintances. I know you know each other. It's good that you don't need to introduce each other when you talk." Wei was not surprised. After all, Dugu Qingning also mentioned this. Qin Sheng asked casually, "Dugu Qingning's words carry weight? What's your relationship with him?" Wei picked up the wine glass and drank by himself. After that, he said with a smile, "Dugu Qingning's status in the Dugu family should be equivalent to that of Yin Chaozong's in the Yin family. His words carry some weight. Moreover, he can make decisions on many things by himself. As for my relationship with him, we have lived in Hangzhou for so many years. We often see each other. Moreover, we're the same kind of people. Naturally, our relationship is not bad. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked him to meet on the first day you arrived in Hangzhou. Am I right?" Since Wei had said so, it meant that he was very confident about this matter. Qin Sheng stood up happily and said, "Then I will accompany you to the queen." In fact, compared with Dugu Qingning, Qin Sheng had a deeper impression of his sister, Dugu Qingyu. This unruly and willful young lady had driven a Ferrari and raced with Qin Sheng. Later, they almost fought. Fortunately, Dugu Qingning had arrived in time, so they did not have a conflict. Qin Sheng did not know if the young lady was here today. It would definitely be interesting to see her again. After all, when Qin Sheng faced these rich playboys in the past, he did not have much confidence. He had to weigh the pros and cons before doing anything. He was afraid that these rich playboys would take revenge on him. Yin Shaozong was the most typical example. However, things were different now. Qin Sheng was no longer the Qin Sheng in the past. He did not need to care about others' feelings when he spoke or did things. Instead, these people had to weigh their own identities and how they should talk to Qin Sheng. After they left the restaurant, several cars were already ready at the gate. Yang Daniyu and the others escorted Qin Sheng there. Wei Li naturally knew some rules. He also arranged a booth at the next table. In this way, they would not disturb their conversation and could protect Qin Sheng's safety. It had to be said that Wei Li was very considerate. It was impossible for such a person not to be awesome in the future. As the provincial capital of Zhejiang, Hangzhou was not short of rich people. It could be said that rich people gathered here. There were many big shots who were influential in the whole country among the businessmen in Zhejiang. Moreover, there were many hidden rich people who kept a low profile. In addition to these rich and powerful people, the situation in Hangzhou was not as complicated as that in Shanghai. Therefore, there were actually many forces like Third Master Wu, the old monk, and the Dugu family. However, some people were not willing to take this path and deliberately kept a low profile. When Qin Sheng and the others arrived at the Queen, it was already overcrowded. The gate was full of luxury cars. However, it was still not as good as the TXX that Qin Sheng went to 2 days ago. At this time, there was already a long line. If one did not make a reservation in advance, he could only rely on his connections or wait in the line slowly. Qin Sheng had been to the Queen several times when he was in Hangzhou, so he was quite familiar with this place. Wei Li had already arranged for someone to receive them. After they got out of the car, they directly walked into the bar. The deafening electronic music, the foul environment, the chaotic scene, and the impetuous scene of people drinking and drinking, Qin Sheng more or less disliked it. Perhaps Wei Li thought that they were all young people at the same time. In this way, they would be able to get along. Soon, they arrived at the arranged booth, which was one of the biggest booths in the Queen. Wei Li was quite influential in Hangzhou. After all, his father's reputation was there. As long as it was among the businessmen in Zhejiang, who did not know the first young Master Wei. Therefore, along the way, Wei Li met a lot of acquaintances who were very familiar with him and greeted him politely. Of course, there were also a lot of beautiful women, which showed how popular he was. Qin Sheng smiled and joked, "I feel that coming to the Queen is like coming home." Based on Wei Li's character, it was obviously not surprising that he had so many friends. Wei Li put his arm around Qin Sheng's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't make fun of me. They're just some ordinary acquaintances. Don't take it seriously." At this time, they arrived at the reserve booth. Dugu Qingning was already waiting there, somewhat restless. When he saw Qin Sheng, who was talking and laughing with Wei Li, coming over, Dugu Qingning slowly stood up and was ready to greet him. However, he felt somewhat uncomfortable in his heart. After all, when he had been in front of Qin Sheng before, he had been the superior young master of the Dugu family. Today, when he met Qin Sheng again, he was just Dugu Qingning, while Qin Sheng was the first young master of the Qin family in Beijing. It was hard for him to adapt to this change of identity. However, in the world of adults, one had to recognize the reality and put oneself in the right position. Otherwise, one would have to pay the price. Therefore, no matter how uncomfortable Dugu Qingning was, he had to adjust his mentality and face Qin Sheng calmly. As for the authenticity of Qin Sheng's identity, Dugu Qingning did not doubt at all. After all, there were not many young people who could make Wei Li pay so much attention to them. Even when he saw Wei Li, he had to obediently bow his head and call him Brother Wei. After all, Wei Li was so powerful that he could not deny it. Since Qin Sheng and Dugu Qingning knew each other, Wei Li did not need to introduce him. Qin Sheng had already seen Dugu Qingning, who was standing there. Dugu Qingning was smiling slightly and looking at him warmly. However, Dugu Qingning was not as overbearing and superior as he had been before. To be honest, Qin Sheng felt very good. It was not that Qin Sheng was a villain who was intoxicated by success, but that they had not taken Qin Sheng seriously in the past. It had never occurred to them that they would meet in such a situation today. Fortunately, they did not go to the dead end. Otherwise, they would not even have such a chance. After Qin Sheng walked to Dugu Qingning's side, he said with a smile, "Young Master Dugu, long time no see. How are you?" The way he looked at Dugu Qingning was quite peaceful, without any coldness that kept him 1,000 miles away. Dugu Qingning was afraid that Qin Sheng would be too arrogant and domineering after his identity had changed. Fortunately, it was not what he had expected. Dugu Qingning replied in a hurry, "Young Master Qin, it did not occur to me that we would meet in such a situation. You did not expect it, neither did I. Many people did not expect it, so I'm afraid that many people are regretting it now," Qin Sheng said conveniently. If he did not have an imposing manner, others would really think that he was the old Qin Sheng. Dugu Qingning naturally understood what Qin Sheng meant. It seemed that he was saying, "Fortunately, Dugu Qingning, you did not offend me in the past. Otherwise, you would regret it now." Dugu Qingning smiled and said, "You are right, young Master Qin. Some people must be regretting it now." Qin Sheng laughed out loud and said, "No matter what, I'm still very happy to see you again, young Master Dugu. Although we were not friends before, we did meet a few times. But we will definitely be friends in the future. Lao Wei's friends are my friends. I will definitely treat my friends with sincerity and courtesy." Dugu Qingning, who was quite sensible, said, "In that case, I have to thank Brother Wei. I will propose a toast to Brother Wei later." He did not dare to take Wei Li lightly. Wei Li laughed out loud and said, "We are friends, we are friends. Let's not talk about anything today. We can only drink. Let's not go home until we are drunk." With Wei Li acting as the middleman, Dugu Qingning naturally did not worry that the atmosphere would be too awkward. Wei Li knew how to adjust the atmosphere very well, which even Dugu Qingning admired. In particular, when there were many elders present, Wei Li could also grasp the propriety. Since Wei Li had said that they would not talk about trivial things today, Dugu Qingning also understood what was going on. That was, they should build a good relationship with each other today. After they got familiar with each other, they would talk about business. Otherwise, if they talked about business as soon as they arrived, they would not adjust their mentality. At that time, it would be counterproductive. Obviously, it was impossible for the three of them to drink together. Wei Li had arranged several young ladies to warm up the atmosphere. They were all students from the China Academy of Fine Arts. Their appearance and temperament were excellent. Even compared with the whole queen, they could be considered as the best. It was very easy for Wei Li to do this. It was just a play. Moreover, it was to adjust the atmosphere. Of course, Qin Sheng had to give face to Wei Li, so he did not refuse. Wei Li and Dugu Qingning knew the rules very well. Of course, the most beautiful and temperamental one was left to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not say anything. He let the young lady, who seemed to be in her early 20s, sit beside him. However, he had been chatting with Dugu Qingning all the time. Not long after the second drinking party started, Qin Sheng saw an acquaintance that he did not expect to meet here. He was surrounded by people and hugged on both sides. He seemed to be very happy. It was estimated that he had drunk a lot. Qin Sheng muttered in his heart, "Brat, shouldn't you be in Ningbo or Shanghai? Why are you in Hangzhou?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.